For thousands of years, the Middle East has been the cradle of civilization, a place where empires rose and fell, leaving behind secrets buried in the sand. But what if the greatest mysteries of this ancient world aren't lost to time? They're still waiting to be uncovered. Beneath the sun-scorched desert, hidden within the ruins of forgotten cities, lies a history that defies explanation. How did ancient civilizations achieve feats that should have been impossible with the tools they had? What secrets are locked away in the cryptic inscriptions, mysterious artifacts, and unfinished monuments that we've yet to fully understand? From the enigmatic tombs of lost kings to the bizarre celestial knowledge etched into Babylonian tablets, there are questions that remain unanswered, clues that lead nowhere, and phenomena that science still can't explain. What were these ancient people really capable of? What were they trying to tell us? And why did they leave these cryptic messages in places only the curious dare to go? So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the mysteries that continue to defy logic and time as we unravel the unsolved enigmas of the ancient Middle East. Deep in the heart of ancient Assyria, where the Tigris River winds its way through the vast Mesopotamian plains, lies the city of Nimrud, once the mighty capital of the Assyrian Empire. Today, it is a place of quiet ruins, its stone walls and majestic sculptures eroded by time and war. Among the remnants of its grandeur, however, there is one object that continues to puzzle historians, archaeologists, and scientists alike: the Nimrud lens. This small, seemingly unremarkable piece of carved stone was discovered in the 19th century at the site of Nimrud, near the famous palace of Ashurnasirpal II. A lens, meticulously polished and cut from translucent rock crystal, it measures only a few inches across, but its significance stretches far beyond its size. Thought to be nearly 3,000 years old, this ancient artifact remains one of the most mysterious objects ever found in the ancient Near East. The lens itself is striking in its craftsmanship. Its smooth surface is precisely shaped, and its clarity suggests a level of sophistication not typically associated with Assyrian technology. The craftsmanship, however, is not what makes it enigmatic. Rather, it is the purpose for which it was created that has stumped scholars for centuries. Was it a decorative object, an ornate piece of royal regalia? Or was it something far more advanced, something that challenges what we know about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations? Mainstream explanations suggest that the Nimrud lens may have been a simple cosmetic mirror or a piece of jewelry intended for use in the royal court. After all, ancient elites often adorned themselves with finely crafted objects, and the idea of a lens as a mirror would fit within the cultural context of the time. Some believe it may have been used for magnifying text, as a tool for the visually impaired, or simply as a symbolic item, a reflection of the wealth and power of the Assyrian Empire. However, this conventional theory has never fully satisfied all who have studied the lens. For one, the lens appears to be too finely crafted to serve as a mere decorative piece. Its clarity and precision seem to point to a level of knowledge far beyond what we would expect from an empire that, by most accounts, did not possess advanced optics or lenses. Furthermore, the lens was found in the ruins of a palace, far from the common practice of mirrors or magnifying lenses being used in everyday life. But perhaps even more puzzling is the suggestion that the lens may have been used for something far more intricate. Could it have been a tool for focusing light, a primitive magnifying glass, or even a rudimentary lens for a telescope or microscope? Such a notion may seem far-fetched, especially when we consider that no records or inscriptions directly support the idea that the Assyrians had knowledge of telescopes or microscopes. And yet, the quality of the lens itself, and its peculiar discovery in a royal palace, invites speculation. Some have even suggested that the lens might have been used in a ritualistic or religious context. Given the Assyrians' deep reverence for gods and the supernatural, it is possible that the lens was not merely a functional object, but one that had symbolic or mystical significance. In this theory, the lens could have been used as part of sacred ceremonies, perhaps to symbolize the all-seeing power of the gods, or to focus divine energy in some way. But even in this context, the true purpose of the lens remains unclear. More speculative theories have emerged over time, fueled by the lens's apparent uniqueness and the lack of definitive answers. Some claim that the Nimrud lens is evidence of lost or forgotten knowledge, an advanced piece of technology from a time long past, far ahead of its era. Could the Assyrians have been more technologically advanced than we previously thought? Could they have possessed knowledge of optics that was lost for centuries, only to be rediscovered much later in history? Alternatively, there are those who believe the lens might have been a piece of a much larger, unknown object, possibly part of a complex machine, an artifact that was once integral to some advanced mechanism, perhaps even an astronomical device. Such ideas, though speculative, are not entirely out of the question, given the Assyrians' obsession with the stars and their impressive achievements in engineering and architecture. Some have even proposed that the lens may have been part of a tool used in ancient skywatching, an instrument that helped the Assyrians chart the heavens. Yet the further one ventures into these theories, the more questions arise. If the lens was part of a larger device, why has nothing else from the object survived? If the Assyrians were so advanced in their understanding of optics or astronomy, why is there no clear evidence to support this claim in their other artifacts or writings? And then, of course, there's the question of how the lens was made. The material it's crafted from, rock crystal, was not widely available in the region, making it an even more remarkable find. How did the Assyrians acquire such a material, and what tools did they use to shape it with such precision? The question of whether such techniques could have been achieved using only the rudimentary tools available to ancient craftsmen lingers, leaving us to wonder if there was something more at play in the ancient world that we simply don't understand. As it stands, the Nimrud lens remains a tantalizing enigma. Though some may dismiss it as a simple ornament, others cannot help but wonder if it is, in fact, a fragment of something far more profound, an artifact that may hold the key to understanding the true capabilities of ancient civilizations. With each new theory, the mystery deepens, leaving us to ponder. What else is still hidden beneath the sands of time, waiting to be discovered? As we continue our journey through the mysteries of the ancient Middle East, we turn now to a cult that flourished in the shadows of the mighty Persian Empire, one that remains enigmatic even to this day. The ancient Persian Mithraic cult, with its rituals, its symbolism, and its profound influence on the course of history, has captivated scholars for centuries. Yet, despite its significance, much about it remains hidden, shrouded in mystery and fragmented by time. In the heart of ancient Persia, the cult of Mithras emerged as a powerful religious force, its followers devoted to a god whose very nature seems to blend the celestial with the earthly. Mithras was a god of light, of justice, and of cosmic order. His followers, bound by sacred oaths, believed they were initiated into a divine mystery, one that promised protection, power, and the favor of the gods. But as we look deeper into the remnants of this cult, the question arises: who, exactly, was Mithras? The primary source of our knowledge about this god comes from ancient Roman inscriptions, as the Mithraic cult spread westward into the Roman Empire during the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. And yet the mystery only deepens when we consider that the cult appears to have had its roots far earlier, within the realms of the Persian Empire itself. The earliest depictions of Mithras are found in Persia, though much of what is known about his worship in ancient Persia remains speculative. Archaeological evidence reveals Mithras as a figure who was often depicted slaying a bull, an image that would become central to the cult in later centuries. The significance of this act, known as the tauroctony, is still hotly debated. Was it a symbolic act of creation, a metaphor for the struggle between light and darkness? Or was it a rite with practical consequences, one that was believed to bring fertility to the land or blessings to the people? In Persia, Mithras was not a solitary deity. He was part of a complex religious framework, intertwined with the Zoroastrian faith, which dominated the region at the time. Mithra, in Zoroastrianism, was a divine figure of truth, covenants, and the protection of oaths. But the Mithraic cult that arose in the later centuries, particularly in Roman and Parthian contexts, appears to have been a more secretive, initiatory religion, its rituals hidden from the public eye and only revealed to those deemed worthy. The Mithraic mysteries, as they were known, were closely guarded by the initiated. These ceremonies, often held in underground temples or caves, involved a series of rituals, each one symbolizing a stage in the believer's spiritual journey. The Mithraeum, the sacred temple where these rituals took place, was often dimly lit, with the flickering shadows of torches casting eerie reflections on the stone walls, depicting scenes of the tauroctony, the slaying of the bull, alongside other enigmatic symbols. In these subterranean sanctuaries, initiates would pass through a series of trials and rituals, progressing from one level of knowledge and power to the next. The ultimate aim? To align themselves with the cosmic forces of order, to rise through the ranks of the spiritual hierarchy, and to secure a place in the afterlife. This was no ordinary cult. Its rituals and beliefs were said to offer not just protection, but transformation. Through their communion with Mithras, followers believed they could transcend the earthly plane and reach a higher state of being. But what exactly did these rituals entail? While some details are known, such as the reverence for light, the burning of incense, and the consumption of a sacred meal, much about the cult's practices remains elusive. Scholars have long speculated about the secretive nature of the Mithraic rites. Was Mithras simply a god of light and justice, or was he something more? Something that may have influenced not only Persian religious practices, but also the development of Christianity itself. Some have pointed to the similarities between the Mithraic rituals and early Christian rites, most notably the shared symbolism of the bull sacrifice, the communal meal, and the imagery of the sun. Mithras was often referred to as Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, and in later centuries, his cult would be absorbed into the Roman imperial cult, with emperors like Aurelian adopting Mithraism as a state religion. Could the cult of Mithras have shaped early Christianity in subtle but profound ways? This theory, while intriguing, remains speculative, lacking definitive evidence but impossible to ignore given the striking parallels between the two religions. Yet while the influence of Mithras on Roman religion is better understood, the true origins of the Mithraic cult in Persia are more difficult to trace. Was Mithras purely a Persian god? Or did he originate from the wider Indo-Iranian traditions, which blended various deities and religious practices over centuries? The absence of written records from early Persia makes it difficult to determine where the Persian Mithras ends and the Roman Mithras begins. And the fragmented nature of the archaeological evidence, scattered throughout the Middle East, Persia, and Europe, adds to the puzzle. Further complicating matters is the fact that Mithraism was ultimately a religion that vanished almost as mysteriously as it emerged. By the 5th century AD, with the rise of Christianity and the decline of the Roman Empire, the Mithraic temples fell silent. The last traces of Mithraism disappeared, leaving us with little more than inscriptions, carvings, and fragments of ritual objects. What caused this disappearance? Was it the rise of a new religious order, or something more sinister, an intentional erasure of the cult's influence? As we explore the Mithraic cult, we are left with more questions than answers. Its sacred rites, its cryptic symbolism, and its enduring influence on later religious movements all point to a depth of mystery that remains hidden beneath the surface of recorded history. What was it about Mithras that captured the imaginations of kings, soldiers, and scholars alike? And what secrets still lie buried in the ruins of the ancient world, waiting for the light to shine on them once more? The mysteries of the Mithraic cult may never be fully revealed, but they continue to beckon, urging us to look deeper into the shadows of the past. In the ancient city of Babylon, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers converge, a civilization flourished that was deeply connected to the heavens. The Babylonians were exceptional astronomers, their observations of the stars and planets shaping much of their culture, religion, and even their political decisions. At the heart of their astronomical achievements lies a mysterious artifact, the old Babylonian Eclipse record, a collection of clay tablets that has intrigued scholars for centuries. These records, etched into the surfaces of ancient clay, reveal Babylon's sophisticated understanding of the sky. But among these records, one particular entry stands out, an eclipse noted in detail, which some believe might hold the key to unlocking mysteries not only about Babylonian science, but also the very nature of historical time itself. The Babylonian Eclipse record, discovered among the ruins of ancient libraries in the city of Sippar and other sites across Mesopotamia, dates back to around 1000 BCE, during a period when the Babylonians were at the peak of their astronomical knowledge. The Babylonians were known to have tracked the cycles of the moon with remarkable precision. They charted the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets, and their calendar was based on lunar cycles. They could predict the return of certain celestial events with astonishing accuracy. But what makes these records so intriguing is not merely their accuracy. It's the way in which they seem to encode knowledge that defies our understanding of ancient capabilities. One eclipse record in particular is famous for its precision in timing, down to the exact moment the eclipse began and ended, as well as the specific celestial bodies involved. The puzzle begins when we look at the date of this eclipse. The record describes a solar eclipse that occurred during the reign of the Babylonian king, Ammi-Saduqa, around 1375 BCE. According to the Babylonian tablets, this eclipse was a significant event, marking not just a celestial occurrence, but a sign of divine will. The Babylonians often interpreted such omens as messages from the gods, with eclipses being especially ominous. The accuracy of this eclipse record has confounded modern astronomers. When we attempt to match the date of the eclipse with our current understanding of astronomy, something remarkable happens. The eclipse recorded by the Babylonians seems to align perfectly with an eclipse that occurred on May 3, 1375 BCE, a day that is incredibly precise, even by modern standards. But here's where the puzzle deepens. This particular eclipse does not appear in the astronomical records of any other civilization. And yet, the Babylonians were able to record its occurrence with incredible detail. How could they have known this so precisely? How did they manage to observe and record an eclipse with such accuracy over 3 millennia ago? Mainstream explanations suggest that the Babylonians had developed a system of mathematics capable of predicting celestial events based on a complex understanding of lunar and solar cycles. Their method, known as the Saros cycle, was a way of predicting eclipses based on the pattern of the moon's orbit and its alignment with the sun. By tracking these patterns over many years, they could predict when an eclipse would occur with remarkable precision. However, the exact details of how they arrived at such precise calculations remain unclear. Some scholars argue that the Babylonians simply recorded the occurrence of the eclipse as a part of their ongoing observations. But the fact that they were able to match it with our own modern calculations is still baffling. How could a civilization without telescopes, without the advanced technology we have today, have achieved such accuracy? But the mystery doesn't stop there. the Babylonians were not merely recording celestial events for their own knowledge. The eclipses they observed held great significance in their culture. Eclipses, in particular, were seen as powerful omens, signaling events of great importance. A solar eclipse, for example, was often interpreted as a sign of impending change, sometimes an omen of a king's death or the fall of an empire. In the case of the eclipse recorded in 1375 BCE, the event was thought to be a divine sign, and it was closely tied to the fate of King Ammi-Saduqa himself. The king, according to the records, was known for his efforts to maintain peace and prosperity within his kingdom. Could the eclipse have been interpreted as a warning to the king? Did he see it as a divine message, one that foretold the end of an era? The Babylonians, with their deeply ingrained belief in astrology and omens, likely saw this celestial event as an opportunity to shape their understanding of destiny. But while the Babylonians saw the eclipse as a sign from the gods, modern scholars have yet to fully explain how they managed to predict the event so precisely. There is no clear evidence to suggest that they had the advanced instruments necessary to make such calculations. The Babylonians did not have telescopes, nor did they have the scientific knowledge of physics that we possess today. So, how did they develop a system that could not only track the moon's cycles, but also predict the timing of celestial events with such incredible accuracy? As we look deeper into the puzzle, some have suggested that the Babylonians may have had access to knowledge from sources outside their immediate culture, knowledge passed down through ancient traditions that we have yet to fully understand. Perhaps they had inherited mathematical principles from earlier civilizations, or possibly even from lost civilizations that are now buried beneath the sands of time. Could they have been in contact with other ancient cultures that had advanced astronomical knowledge? Or is it possible that they had developed their own system through trial and error, over centuries of observation and refinement? Yet, despite these theories, no conclusive evidence has been found to explain how the Babylonians arrived at their astonishingly precise eclipse record. And this raises another question. Was their astronomical knowledge really as simple as a series of careful observations, or was there something more at play, something hidden from us, lost in the folds of history? The mystery of the old Babylonian eclipse record challenges our assumptions about ancient knowledge and its potential limits. As modern science continues to explore the mysteries of the ancient world, we are left to ponder. Did the Babylonians possess a forgotten method of celestial observation? Were they simply far more advanced than we give them credit for? Or is there a deeper, unexplainable layer of knowledge hidden within these ancient records? What other secrets about the stars and the heavens might still be waiting to be uncovered from the dust of Babylon? As we continue to investigate the astronomical prowess of ancient civilizations, we are reminded that the more we uncover, the more questions arise. The Babylonians were not just stargazers, they were interpreters of the cosmos, weaving the fabric of their lives into the rhythms of the universe. And as we study their records, we must ask, what knowledge did they possess that has been lost to time? And what can we still learn from their celestial observations? The sun beats relentlessly on the dry, cracked earth of Susa, an ancient city that once stood as a heart of civilization in the land of Mesopotamia. Today, the ruins of this once thriving metropolis are but echoes of the past, their secrets buried deep beneath the sands of time. But in 1901, an extraordinary discovery would be made here. One that would change our understanding of ancient law, justice, and civilization itself, the Code of Hammurabi. Carved onto a towering black stone stele, the Code of Hammurabi stands as one of the most important artifacts ever uncovered in the ancient world. Standing over 7 feet tall, this basalt monument depicts the Babylonian king Hammurabi, who ruled the Babylonian Empire from around 1792 to 1750 BCE, receiving the laws directly from the sun god Shamash. The reliefs on the stele show Hammurabi in the presence of Shamash, whose radiating sunburst seems to empower the king to deliver justice to his people. Below the image of the king and god, inscribed in cuneiform script, are 282 laws governing every aspect of Babylonian life, from family relations and property rights to criminal punishments and business dealings. The discovery of the Code of Hammurabi was nothing short of a revelation. For centuries, the concept of written law seemed like a distant and mysterious development, limited to the scribes of ancient Egypt or the fragmented legal codes of early civilizations. Yet here, in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi stood as a testament to the sophistication of Babylonian society and the development of law as a fundamental pillar of governance. On the surface, the Code of Hammurabi appears to be a straightforward legal document, outlining specific laws and corresponding punishments. Its famous principle of an eye for an eye has entered popular culture as a symbol of ancient justice, though the true meaning of this phrase has often been misinterpreted. In its original context, it suggested a system of proportional retribution, where the punishment was designed to fit the crime. While some laws seem harsh by modern standards, they reflect the highly structured and hierarchical society in which they were written. But as scholars have examined the code more closely, they have found that its significance goes far beyond its legal content. The stele itself raises a host of intriguing questions. How was such a sophisticated legal code developed at a time when much of the world was still mired in oral traditions? Why was it engraved on a giant stone, placed in public spaces for all to see? And why, despite the vast influence of Hammurabi's empire, did the code remain confined to such a narrow geographic region? One of the most puzzling aspects of the code is the question of its intended audience. Unlike modern legal systems, which are based on written laws that apply universally to all citizens, the Code of Hammurabi appears to have been aimed at a specific elite audience, those who could read and understand the cuneiform script. While it was publicly displayed, it is unclear whether the general populace had full access to its contents, or whether it was primarily a tool for the administration of the royal court. Was the code designed to be an act of propaganda, intended to reinforce Hammurabi's authority and divine mandate, or was it a genuine attempt to codify laws for the entire empire? Some scholars argue that the Code of Hammurabi may have been an effort to consolidate and unify the various city-states and regions of Hammurabi's diverse empire. Mesopotamia, even under the rule of a single king, was home to many different peoples and cultures, each with its own customs and laws. The code could have been an attempt to create a sense of cohesion and order, establishing a common legal framework across the empire. But if this was the case, why were some laws so specific to particular social classes or professions? And why did they differ so dramatically from those in other cultures? More puzzling still is the origin of the code itself. While Hammurabi is credited with compiling and codifying these laws, there is evidence to suggest that the ideas behind the code were not entirely original. In fact, some of the laws closely resemble earlier legal traditions from Sumerian and Akkadian cultures, suggesting that Hammurabi may have drawn from pre-existing legal codes. The Ur-Nammu Law Code, for example, which dates back to around 2100 BCE, contains striking similarities to the Code of Hammurabi, including principles of justice and retribution. The question remains: was Hammurabi merely codifying an existing body of law, or was he creating something entirely new? Some historians have even suggested that the Code of Hammurabi was not intended to be a fully comprehensive set of laws, but rather a moral and political statement. It is possible that the code was written as a symbolic gesture, an assertion of Hammurabi's right to rule and a proclamation of his role as the protector of justice. The inclusion of certain harsh punishments, such as the death penalty for various offenses, may have been designed to show Hammurabi's unwavering commitment to maintaining order and stability within the empire. But despite its outward simplicity, the Code of Hammurabi remains a deeply layered and complex artifact, one that raises more questions than it answers. How did Hammurabi manage to impose such a uniform system of law across an empire that spanned vast and culturally diverse territories? And how much of the code was genuinely practical law versus an idealized, almost divine decree meant to reflect Hammurabi's power and wisdom? Furthermore, the historical context of the code raises additional mysteries. Was the code itself created as a result of social unrest or conflict? The Babylonian Empire, while powerful, was also plagued by internal struggles as various city-states and factions vied for power. Could the code have been a way for Hammurabi to assert his dominance and create stability in the face of rising tensions? What role did religion and the gods play in the formulation of these laws? The fact that the stele depicts Hammurabi receiving the laws directly from Shamash, the sun god, suggests a divine endorsement, but how much of this divine authority was truly believed by the people of Babylon, and how much was crafted to bolster Hammurabi's political power? The mystery of the Code of Hammurabi is not merely about the laws it contains or the way in which they were written. It's about the very nature of law itself. What does the existence of such a code tell us about the development of legal systems, governance, and civilization? Was Hammurabi's code a sign of a deeply enlightened society, or was it a tool for the consolidation of absolute power, designed to keep a restless empire in check? As we consider these questions, we cannot help but wonder, what other ancient legal texts remain hidden beneath the sands, waiting to be discovered? What else might the ancient world have understood about justice and society that we have yet to fully comprehend? The Code of Hammurabi, with its inscrutable mix of logic, morality, and divine authority, continues to spark both admiration and curiosity. And as we look to the past for answers, we are reminded that the story of human civilization is far more complex and mysterious than we might have ever imagined. As we turn our gaze to the ancient ruins of Persepolis, a once thriving capital of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, we are met with a landscape that is both awe-inspiring and hauntingly silent. Nestled in the heart of modern-day Iran, Persepolis stands as a testament to the grandeur and sophistication of the Persian kings, particularly Darius the Great and Xerxes I. The site is dominated by monumental stone reliefs, towering columns, and sprawling terraces, all of which hint at the empire's vast wealth and power. Yet, amidst this breathtaking architecture, there lies a mystery that continues to baffle historians and archaeologists: the secret treasure of the Persian Empire, rumored to be hidden within the very heart of Persepolis. The ruins of Persepolis tell a story of opulence. Once a grand ceremonial capital, it was designed to showcase the strength, culture, and prosperity of the Persian kings. Darius, who founded the city in the 6th century BCE, envisioned it as a symbol of the empire's might. It was here, in the palatial halls of Persepolis, that the kings would host grand receptions, receiving tribute from the farthest reaches of their empire, from Egypt to India. The wealth that flowed through these halls was unimaginable. Gold, silver, precious stones, and fine textiles, all symbolizing the prosperity that the Persian Empire had achieved. But what happened to all that wealth? Today, the ruins of Persepolis are largely abandoned, with only fragments of its former splendor remaining. The grand staircases are now weathered, the intricate carvings of kings and gods partially eroded by time and the elements. But it is within this silence that the mystery deepens. The treasure that once filled Persepolis is rumored to be hidden, perhaps buried somewhere beneath the ruins, waiting to be discovered. Historical accounts from ancient times suggest that Persepolis held vast treasures, accumulated over centuries of Persian conquests and diplomacy. The historian Herodotus speaks of the treasures of the Persian kings, describing the wealth of their empire as beyond comprehension. The famous Greek historian wrote of golden palaces, endless stores of fine goods, and treasures beyond compare. But what he did not mention, what many of his contemporaries did not know, was that much of this treasure would vanish, possibly without a trace, when the city was sacked. In 330 BCE, Alexander the Great and his Macedonian army captured Persepolis. The city, which had once stood as a symbol of Persian power, was looted and burned to the ground. While the flames of war consumed much of the city's wealth, there are those who believe that much of the royal treasure was hidden away in secret chambers or buried beneath the city before Alexander's arrival. It is said that the Persian kings, in anticipation of such an attack, may have gone to great lengths to conceal their most prized possessions. What happened to the treasure of Persepolis after the invasion remains an open question. Some believe it was hidden in the underground chambers of the royal palace, which, to this day, have yet to be fully excavated. The vastness of Persepolis, combined with its intricate layout, suggests that there may be hidden vaults and secret passages yet to be discovered. Some claim that these treasures were moved to other, safer locations, perhaps to Susa or even further afield, as the empire's capital shifted with the changing tides of history. But the theory that the treasure was concealed within Persepolis itself is the most tantalizing. If this is true, could there still be undiscovered caches buried beneath the ancient ruins? There is also the possibility that the treasure of Persepolis was intentionally erased from history. After Alexander's conquest, the Persian Empire was no more. The memory of its riches and grandeur could have been systematically erased, as new rulers sought to discredit the legacy of the Persians. Did later conquerors deliberately bury or destroy the treasure in order to eliminate all traces of the Achaemenid dynasty? It's a theory that fits with the idea of deliberate cultural erasure, common in the ancient world after the fall of a great civilization, but there's more. Some have suggested that the treasure of Persepolis could be tied to an even deeper mystery, an ancient ritualistic significance. Could the treasures of the Persian kings have been part of a sacred ceremony or a divine offering? The Persians were known for their reverence of the gods, and many of the objects they amassed were meant to honor deities like Ahura Mazda, the supreme god in the Zoroastrian pantheon. Could it be that the wealth of the Persian Empire was not just material, but also spiritual, hidden away to preserve the sanctity of the royal line? This idea raises the intriguing possibility that the treasure of Persepolis was not intended for earthly hands, but for a higher, sacred purpose, perhaps as offerings to the gods or as objects to be used in esoteric rituals. There are also those who wonder if the treasure may have been tied to the mysteries of the Persian kings themselves. The Persian rulers, after all, were seen not only as kings, but as divine figures, intermediaries between the gods and the people. Could the treasure be connected to the king's role as the earthly representative of the divine? If so, would it not make sense for such a treasure to be hidden, preserved for future generations or for a time when it would be needed to restore the Persian Empire? The evidence for any of these theories is scant. Archaeologists have searched tirelessly for the fabled treasure, but the ruins of Persepolis, despite their grandeur, offer little in the way of definitive answers. Excavations have uncovered a wealth of artifacts, small statues, pieces of jewelry, and fragments of pottery, but nothing that conclusively ties them to the fabled treasures of the Persian kings. In fact, some believe that much of what remained in Persepolis after the fire of Alexander's army was looted or destroyed, leaving behind only the faintest traces of the empire's once glorious wealth. Yet, the mystery endures. Could it be that the treasure of the Persian kings lies beneath our feet, hidden in secret vaults yet to be discovered? Or is it possible that it was lost to history, scattered across the ancient world, its whereabouts lost to time? The ruins of Persepolis continue to stand as a reminder of the might and mystery of the Persian Empire. But as we stand before the towering columns and intricate reliefs, we cannot help but wonder, what secrets remain hidden beneath the earth? What treasures of the ancient world are still waiting to be uncovered, their story left unfinished, waiting for the light of discovery to shine upon them once again? The answer, like so many other mysteries, remains elusive. But the search for it continues, buried within the ancient stones of Persepolis, waiting for the day when it will be revealed. High in the rugged mountains of Lorestan province, a hidden tomb lies cloaked in mystery. The jagged peaks, dark valleys, and treacherous slopes of this remote region have long been a place of solitude. Shrouded in thick forests and unforgiving terrain, the site is far from the well-trodden paths of modern civilization. It is here, in the heart of Iran's western highlands, that the tomb of the lost king remains, a burial place surrounded by an air of enigma. The tomb, discovered only in the late 20th century, is perched on the side of an isolated mountain, partially obscured by overgrowth and rock. The location itself suggests that whoever was buried here, likely a ruler of great significance, was meant to remain concealed from the world, even in death. The careful placement of the tomb, hidden deep within the mountainous wilderness, raises immediate questions. Why was this king interred so far from the centers of power in ancient Persia? Was it a deliberate choice, a precautionary measure, or an act of defiance? And most hauntingly, why has this tomb remained largely untouched and unexplored for so long? The evidence gathered so far points to the Achaemenid dynasty, the powerful empire that ruled over vast swaths of the ancient world. Its kings, such as Cyrus the Great and Darius I, are well-known figures in history, their tombs often monumental and easily accessible. Yet the lost king of Lorestan seems to defy this trend. No name or inscription has been found to identify him, and no clear records exist to explain his life or reign. This king, shrouded in anonymity, is nothing short of a historical enigma. And this has led some to question whether he was intentionally erased from the historical record, his memory, like his tomb, hidden from the world. The tomb itself is not grand in the traditional sense. Unlike the towering and lavish structures found in Persepolis or Pasargadae, this burial site is modest yet undeniably significant. Built into the side of a mountain, the tomb's entrance is flanked by weathered stones, which appear to have been carefully placed but are now weathered by centuries of exposure to the elements. The stonework is simple, yet striking, with inscriptions and carvings that hint at a level of craftsmanship far beyond what one would expect from a remote burial site. The tomb's location, high above the surrounding valley, where few would venture, suggests that this king was not only a ruler, but also a figure of considerable influence, perhaps even a warrior. His people may have chosen this high ground as a final resting place, as if to protect him from the ravages of time and enemies alike. The site offers a view over the surrounding landscape, giving it a sense of sovereignty and dominance, as if the king's spirit could forever watch over the land he once ruled. But what was the significance of such a choice? Why not a grand tomb in the bustling cities of Persia, where his legacy could have been celebrated? One of the most puzzling aspects of this tomb is the lack of written records. The Persians were known for their inscriptions, their great works of architecture, and their monumental tombs adorned with intricate carvings that told stories of war, conquest, and divine right. Yet the lost king's tomb offers little in terms of identifying inscriptions or historical context. The only markers that remain are vague, abstract carvings that have yet to be definitively translated. They might represent something deeply symbolic, perhaps an attempt to preserve the king's identity in a way that transcended the conventional use of writing. But without more concrete evidence, these carvings remain a mystery, cryptic symbols that hint at a forgotten past. The absence of clear answers has led to much speculation. Some historians suggest that the tomb could belong to an unknown ruler from the Achaemenid period, possibly a lesser-known or illegitimate king whose reign was overshadowed by more powerful figures. Perhaps his rule was brief, or his death was controversial, and thus his legacy was not preserved by later generations. There is also the possibility that this king was someone with a less than glorious end, erased from official records by those who followed. But why bury him in such an isolated, hard-to-reach location if his reign was indeed brief and inconsequential? Could there be more to his story than we realize? Other theories point toward the possibility that the lost king might not have been Persian at all. Could this tomb belong to a foreign ruler who had established brief rule over the region during a time of unrest or conflict? The Medes, Elamites, and even some lesser-known tribes could have used the mountainous regions of Lorestan as a base of operations. This theory, while speculative, raises an interesting possibility: that the tomb of the lost king could belong to a figure whose heritage was not fully Persian, yet whose influence on the region was significant enough to warrant a royal burial. And then there is the darker, more fringe theory. Some suggest that this king might have been the victim of an assassination, his death perhaps politically motivated or the result of internal power struggles. The tomb's hidden location, far from the watchful eyes of the royal courts, could then be a deliberate act of obscurity. But if this were the case, why would those responsible for his death go to such great lengths to ensure his eternal concealment? Was this tomb meant to protect his legacy, or was it a place to bury a figure too dangerous to be remembered? Despite the theories and conjecture, there is still much about the tomb that remains unknown. Excavation efforts have been limited, and much of the site is left untouched by modern hands. Whether it is out of respect for the tomb's sanctity or due to logistical difficulties in accessing the site, the lost king's final resting place continues to lie in silence, its secrets undisturbed. Could it be that this tomb holds the key to a larger story about the Persian Empire, one that has been forgotten over time? What might be hidden beneath the stones, treasures, relics, or perhaps something more symbolic? The lack of detailed information surrounding this tomb only adds to the allure of the mystery. For now, it stands as a testament to a time long past, a puzzle wrapped in stone and silence, waiting for answers that may never come. As we reflect on the tomb of the lost king, one question persists: who was this ruler, and why did his tomb remain hidden for so long? What happened to him, and what does his final resting place say about the forgotten corners of the Persian world? Perhaps the answers lie beneath the stones, waiting to be uncovered, if indeed they ever will be. Until then, the mystery remains unsolved, leaving us to wonder just how much of ancient Persia's history is still waiting to be discovered. High in the rugged cliffs of Petra, the ancient rose-red city carved into the heart of southern Jordan, a mystery lingers, hidden in the shadows of its time-worn stone facades, waiting to be uncovered. The city, once the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, is a marvel of ancient engineering. Its rock-cut tombs, intricate water systems, and imposing monuments draw visitors from around the world, but beneath the surface lies something less well-known, yet no less captivating: the hidden cave paintings of Petra. Petra, known as the Rose City for the color of its sandstone cliffs, was carved and constructed over 2 millennia ago, flourishing between the 4th century BCE and the 2nd century CE. It was a thriving center for trade, strategically positioned along the ancient caravan routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula, Egypt, and Syria. Its iconic structures, such as the treasury, Al-Khazneh, and the monastery, Ad-Dair, have captured the public imagination for generations. But beyond these famous landmarks, in the shadowy recesses of Petra's many caves, there lies a lesser-known chapter of its story, a series of cave paintings that remain largely unexplored. These paintings, often overlooked in favor of Petra's more famous rock-cut architecture, have long been a subject of intrigue for archaeologists and explorers. They are, in some cases, hidden deep within the city's labyrinthine passageways, tucked away in caves that are difficult to access. The discovery of these paintings dates back to the 19th century, when European explorers first began to document Petra's hidden treasures. However, since then, little systematic research has been done, and many of the paintings remain undocumented or only partially understood. What makes these cave paintings so compelling is not only their rarity, but also their enigmatic nature. Unlike the well-documented petroglyphs and inscriptions found throughout the ancient world, which often depict gods, kings, or battle scenes, the paintings of Petra are subtle and enigmatic. They portray abstract shapes, stylized human figures, and symbols that defy easy interpretation. Some show faint representations of animals, horses, camels, and strange creatures, while others seem to focus on geometric patterns, spirals, and symbols that have no immediate connection to any known Nabatean tradition. The most striking aspect of these paintings is their mysterious symbolism. Some researchers believe that the images may represent ancient religious or ritualistic practices. The Nabateans were known for their complex polytheistic beliefs, and their gods were often represented in a variety of forms. Could these paintings be a form of sacred expression, linked to the worship of the Nabatean pantheon, or even earlier spiritual traditions that predate the Nabateans? The painting's abstraction, especially the swirling, almost hypnotic patterns, suggests a spiritual or mystical significance. But as of yet, no definitive interpretation has been made. Was this art simply for decorative purposes, or was it meant to communicate something much deeper, perhaps a connection to the divine or the supernatural? The placement of these paintings also raises intriguing questions. Some are located in caves that seem to have been used for ceremonial or burial purposes. Could these paintings be connected to ancient rites or rituals? The caves themselves, many of which are located in remote and difficult-to-reach areas of Petra, add to the sense of mystery. Why were these specific locations chosen for these sacred depictions? Were they meant to be hidden from the public eye, reserved for the elite or priestly class? Or were they merely the work of wandering artists, capturing the landscape and spirit of the land around them? There is also the question of who created these paintings. The Nabateans, renowned for their architectural achievements and their mastery of water management, left few clues about their artistic practices. While some ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians or the Sumerians, produced detailed records of their artistic and religious activities, the Nabateans were more secretive. Their language, their written records, and their artistic traditions remain shrouded in mystery. So, could these cave paintings have been created by other, earlier peoples who inhabited the region? The area surrounding Petra has a long history of human occupation, and the land was once home to several nomadic groups. The possibility that the paintings predate the Nabatean kingdom is an intriguing one, suggesting that the mysteries of Petra go back even further than we currently know. One of the most perplexing theories about these paintings centers around their connection to celestial events. Some scholars have speculated that the geometric shapes and spirals might be linked to the ancient practice of astronomy. The Nabateans, much like other ancient civilizations, were keenly aware of the movements of the stars, the moon, and the sun. Some researchers believe that the abstract forms in the paintings might represent star constellations, celestial bodies, or seasonal changes. Could these cave paintings, then, be a form of early astronomical charting, marking the movements of the heavens in the way that other ancient cultures used stone circles or star maps? Another theory suggests that the paintings may be linked to ritualistic practices related to the underworld. In many ancient cultures, caves were seen as gateways to the afterlife or to spiritual realms. The Nabateans, with their complex belief systems, might have used these paintings as part of funerary or initiatory rituals, marking the transition from life to death, or from the physical world to the spiritual one. The fact that some of the paintings are found in caves that show signs of use as burial sites only strengthens this theory. Despite these theories, the paintings remain an unsolved puzzle. While some have been studied and catalogued, most are still untouched, hidden from view by the elements or the difficult terrain. The lack of proper excavation and documentation has left many of these works in a state of mystery, and it is possible that new discoveries could radically change our understanding of them. But even without the answers, these paintings continue to draw us in. The way they capture fleeting moments in time, abstract yet deeply meaningful, reminds us of the vast unknowns of ancient history. What if these paintings hold the key to understanding not just the Nabateans, but the spiritual and cultural practices of the many peoples who once traversed these deserts? What secrets do these cave walls still whisper, waiting for the right eyes to decode their hidden messages? As we reflect on the mystery of the hidden cave paintings of Petra, we are reminded that even the most well-known archaeological sites can hold vast secrets just beneath the surface. These ancient artworks, tucked away in the caves of Petra, continue to challenge our understanding of the past. And as we continue to explore the mysteries of the ancient Middle East, we must ask, what other treasures, waiting in the dark recesses of history, might still be uncovered, revealing a past far more complex and mysterious than we could ever imagine? High in the Anatolian plateau, where the winds howl through the rugged mountains and the landscape stretches in every direction like an unbroken sea of earth and sky, lies the forgotten capital of the Hittite Empire, Hattusa. Once a bustling metropolis and the heart of one of the most powerful civilizations of the ancient Near East, Hattusa today stands in quiet ruin. Its massive stone walls, towering gateways, and crumbling temples speak to its former grandeur. But beneath the surface of these silent stones lies a mystery that has puzzled archaeologists and historians for over a century. The mysterious fate of Hattusa, and why, after flourishing for centuries, it was abandoned so suddenly and so completely. Hattusa, located near modern-day Boğazkale in Turkey, was the capital of the Hittite Empire from the 17th to the 11th centuries BCE. The Hittites were a formidable power, known for their military prowess, advanced legal systems, and diplomatic ingenuity. At its peak, Hattusa was a city of immense importance, a vibrant center for culture, trade, and religion. The city was carefully designed, with a well-planned layout of temples, royal palaces, administrative buildings, and homes, all surrounded by thick protective walls. The scale of the city was enormous. Some estimates suggest that the urban area covered as much as 1.5 square kilometers, with monumental structures built from massive limestone blocks. The city's most famous features include the Lion's Gate, adorned with statues of fierce lions, and the King's Gate, an impressive entrance leading into the heart of the royal district. Yet, despite the Hittites' power and sophistication, Hattusa, like so many ancient cities, eventually fell into ruin. The Hittite Empire itself, which once controlled a vast territory stretching from modern-day Turkey through Syria and into parts of Iraq, came to a mysterious and dramatic end around the 12th century BCE. But what led to the abandonment of Hattusa, the very capital of the empire? The historical record provides few answers. The Hittites left behind numerous texts, many of which were written on clay tablets in the Akkadian language, offering insight into their legal codes, religious practices, and military campaigns. These records are invaluable, yet they do not explain the reasons behind Hattusa's sudden fall. In fact, the annals of the Hittites themselves are curiously silent on the city's demise. There is no clear mention of why the once thriving capital, surrounded by its formidable defenses and strategically located at the crossroads of ancient trade routes, was abandoned in such a complete and final manner. The city, once home to tens of thousands of people, was seemingly deserted overnight, its once grand palaces and temples left to crumble under the weight of time. Archaeological evidence suggests that the city's abandonment was not due to a sudden invasion or attack. In fact, there are no clear signs of a violent destruction, no traces of fire, no evidence of war. Instead, the ruins of Hattusa show evidence of slow decay. The temples and public buildings were looted, but there is little evidence to suggest they were destroyed in the traditional sense of warfare. Instead, it seems as though the Hittite inhabitants simply abandoned their city, leaving behind their homes, their treasures, and their gods. But why would a people leave their capital so suddenly? Was it the result of internal strife, a breakdown in leadership, or something more ominous? One theory suggests that the fall of Hattusa was the result of climatic change. Evidence from the archaeological site suggests that the region may have experienced a drought or other environmental stress around the time of the city's abandonment. Studies of ancient pollen and other botanical remains have shown a decrease in agricultural productivity, which could have placed immense strain on the city's food supply. If the region's once fertile agricultural lands were no longer able to support the growing population, it's possible that the inhabitants of Hattusa were forced to leave in search of more hospitable lands. But the environmental theory, while plausible, does not fully account for the scale and suddenness of Hattusa's collapse. There are no large-scale signs of famine or suffering, and many of the Hittite texts seem to suggest that their empire was in a position of strength just prior to the abandonment. The collapse of the Bronze Age, which affected many civilizations around the Mediterranean and Near East during the 12th century BCE, provides another possible explanation. During this period, there was a widespread collapse of urban centers, possibly caused by a combination of factors such as invasions, climate change, and internal instability. It's possible that the fall of Hattusa was part of this broader regional collapse, with Hittite society unable to withstand the confluence of these pressures. Yet, there is another possibility, one that ventures into the realm of the speculative and the unexplained. Some researchers have suggested that Hattusa's fall was due to mysterious internal conflicts, perhaps a religious schism or a political upheaval. The Hittites were a complex society with multiple gods and powerful priesthoods that played a central role in their political and social life. Could the city have been abandoned as a result of a revolutionary movement, perhaps one aimed at breaking free from the religious or political structure that had sustained the empire? Such a theory would explain the lack of external destruction, if the inhabitants had left of their own accord rather than being driven out by external forces. Perhaps the most intriguing and speculative theory about the fate of Hattusa is tied to the mysterious Sea Peoples, a term used to describe a group of maritime raiders who swept across the Mediterranean during the same period that Hattusa was abandoned. The Sea Peoples are believed to have been responsible for the destruction of several ancient civilizations, including the Hittites, and may have caused widespread chaos in the region. But did the Sea Peoples reach Hattusa? While there is no direct evidence of their presence in the city, it's possible that their raids, combined with internal decline, contributed to the collapse of the Hittite capital. The question of Hattusa's fate remains unresolved, as does the ultimate cause of the empire's fall. The city was eventually rediscovered by modern archaeologists in the early 20th century, and excavations continue to this day. But despite the wealth of information uncovered at the site, including thousands of cuneiform tablets and artifacts, the reason for the abandonment of Hattusa remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of ancient history. As we stand among the towering walls of Hattusa, amidst the ruins of temples and royal palaces, we are reminded of how fragile human civilizations can be. What might have been the fate of the Hittites had they not abandoned their capital? Could their empire have survived longer, Or was the collapse inevitable, driven by forces far beyond their control? And as the winds whistle through the crumbling stone gates of Hattusa, we can't help but wonder, what else is hidden beneath the layers of earth and time, waiting to be uncovered? What answers still remain buried in the ruins of this ancient city? As we journey deep into the heart of the Persian Empire, we arrive at a story that has eluded scholars for centuries. The mystery of the hidden kingdom of Cambyses II, the enigmatic Persian king whose ambitions and actions led him to one of the most remarkable and elusive chapters in ancient history. Cambyses II, the son of Cyrus the Great, is perhaps most famous for his conquest of Egypt in 525 BCE. Yet, beyond his military triumphs, his reign is shrouded in a cloud of mystery, intrigue, and uncertainty, especially concerning a lost campaign and the fate of a hidden kingdom that he may have once ruled. The story of Cambyses II begins with his rise to power as the second king of the Achaemenid Empire. Upon his father's death, Cambyses ascended the throne and quickly set his sights on Egypt, a rich and powerful kingdom that had long been a target for Persian expansion. His successful invasion of Egypt, the defeat of Pharaoh Psamtik III, and the eventual annexation of Egypt into the Persian Empire made him a celebrated military leader. But it is what happened after his victory, what he may have encountered beyond the well-known military exploits, that remains unclear. In 523 BCE, a year after his successful conquest, Cambyses set out on an ambitious and mysterious campaign that would take him deep into the heart of the Egyptian desert. The details of this campaign are sparse, recorded only in fragmented accounts from ancient historians like Herodotus and Plutarch. Cambyses, fueled by a desire to expand his empire and erase the memory of Egypt's old glory, embarked on an expedition against the Oracle of Amun at Siwa Oasis, a sacred site in the Egyptian desert that was home to a revered oracle said to have the ability to predict the future. But what happened on this journey? Cambyses' army, according to Herodotus, was lost in a sandstorm so vast and violent that it swallowed up the entire force, including thousands of soldiers, along with their supplies and the sacred treasures they carried. The disaster, which seemingly wiped out the Persian army in a single blow, became legendary, and no trace of the lost expedition was ever found. The lost army of Cambyses would remain one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world. But this was not the only enigma tied to Cambyses II's reign. In the years following his conquest of Egypt, rumors began to swirl about an undiscovered kingdom ruled by Cambyses in the remote reaches of his vast empire. Some accounts speak of a mysterious place, possibly in the deserts beyond Egypt, where Cambyses established a hidden and forgotten domain, an area so secret that even his closest officials were unaware of it. But if such a kingdom existed, where could it have been located? And why has it remained lost for over 2 millennia? Scholars have long speculated that Cambyses may have attempted to create a secondary power base far from the watchful eyes of his court in Persepolis. Ancient Persian kings often sought to secure their empires with a network of fortresses, trade routes, and shadowy alliances, and Cambyses, driven by ambition, might have had designs on a realm that was both separate and strategically significant. This hidden kingdom, if it truly existed, would likely have been located in a remote desert region, possibly near the borders of Libya, the Nile Delta, or in the unexplored territories of North Africa. There is no direct evidence to support the theory of this lost kingdom, yet tantalizing fragments of evidence seem to point to its possible existence. Some scholars believe that the remnants of Cambyses' hidden domain may have been buried beneath the shifting sands of time, waiting to be uncovered. Could there be hidden inscriptions, ancient ruins, or even remains of the lost army itself, left behind by the king's ill-fated desert expedition? Could such a kingdom have been deliberately erased from the historical record, its existence suppressed for reasons we may never fully understand. One theory suggests that Cambyses' ambitions may have led him into a dangerous relationship with the religious authorities of Egypt, who held immense power in the kingdom. After his conquest, Cambyses attempted to take on the role of both king and god, a status that had long been reserved for Egyptian pharaohs. His controversial acts, such as the alleged desecration of Egyptian temples and the murder of the sacred Apis bull, may have caused significant unrest among the Egyptian elite, who could have sought to erase his legacy. If Cambyses' hidden kingdom was indeed located in Egypt's remote desert regions, it is possible that this was a strategy to escape the tension of a kingdom on the verge of rebellion, a place where he could solidify his rule away from the political instability of Egypt's heartlands. Another intriguing possibility is that Cambyses' lost kingdom may have been an attempt to connect with the nomadic peoples of the desert regions who played a significant role in the ancient world's trade routes and military tactics. The Scythians, for example, were known to inhabit vast territories to the north and east of the Persian Empire. Cambyses' desire to extend his influence over these nomadic tribes could explain why he ventured so far into uncharted desert regions. But what might have happened to this kingdom once it was established? Was it destroyed by a local uprising, abandoned due to environmental factors, or lost to the sands of time? Cambyses' reign was marked by increasingly erratic behavior, and his eventual death under mysterious circumstances only added to the intrigue surrounding his rule. Some sources suggest that his mind had become unhinged after his army's catastrophic loss in the desert, and his later years were filled with bizarre and cruel actions. Could the hidden kingdom be tied to his psychological unraveling, a reflection of his increasingly isolated and paranoid state? The mystery of the hidden kingdom of Cambyses II remains one of the great unsolved puzzles of the ancient world. Despite the extensive records left behind by the Persians, much of Cambyses' reign, and particularly the details of his desert expedition and the potential existence of his secret kingdom, remain lost in the annals of history. The ruins of this hidden kingdom, if they exist, have yet to be found, and the secrets they may hold continue to slip further from our grasp. As we stand in the shadows of Cambyses' empire, the unanswered questions loom large. What if this kingdom is not buried in Egypt's deserts, but hidden somewhere else, perhaps beneath layers of shifting sand, or lost beneath the rubble of a forgotten city? Could there still be hidden treasures, ancient inscriptions, or even the final resting places of Cambyses' army, awaiting their moment of discovery? The tale of Cambyses II's hidden kingdom, like so many of the ancient mysteries we've explored, remains unresolved. Yet, with every new excavation, every fragment of an ancient text, we edge closer to understanding a little more of what Cambyses might have concealed from the world. What lies waiting to be unearthed, and what secrets will we discover about the man who sought to conquer not only the lands of Egypt, but the very deserts that lay beyond the known world? The answer remains hidden, but it is a question worth asking. Nestled deep in the heart of ancient Israel, beneath the scorching desert sun, lies a discovery that could change our understanding of the origins of one of the world's most influential languages: Hebrew. Amid the remote caves of Qumran, near the shores of the Dead Sea, archaeologists uncovered something that would both astonish and mystify the world. The earliest known Hebrew text ever found, the Ketef Hinnom Scrolls. The story of the Ketef Hinnom Scrolls begins in 1979, when an archaeological team, led by Gabriel Barkay, was working in a field just outside Jerusalem. The area, known as Ketef Hinnom, was once a burial ground dating back to the 7th century BCE. Hidden within a rock-hewn tomb, 2 small silver amulets were discovered, wrapped in fragments of ancient text. At first glance, they seemed to be nothing more than ordinary burial objects, small items likely used to ward off evil spirits or protect the deceased in the afterlife. But as researchers began to carefully examine the inscriptions on these amulets, they realized something extraordinary. These tiny scrolls contained some of the earliest examples of Hebrew writing ever discovered. The text etched into the silver was a blessing, reminiscent of biblical verses but with striking differences that suggested a deeper connection to the spiritual traditions of the ancient Israelites. The scrolls, measuring only about 2 inches in length, were painstakingly unrolled and deciphered, using advanced imaging techniques. What emerged was an ancient blessing that is remarkably similar to the priestly blessing found in the Book of Numbers in the Hebrew Bible. The words on the Ketef Hinnom amulets read, "May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace." For centuries, this blessing had been a staple of Jewish religious ceremonies, but to find it inscribed in Hebrew on objects predating the Bible itself by centuries was a revelation that startled the scholarly world. The scrolls not only confirmed the existence of Hebrew as an ancient language, but also provided a rare glimpse into the spiritual practices of the people who lived in the land of Israel over 2,600 years ago. The significance of this discovery lies not just in its age, but in the mysteries it presents. How could these silver amulets, dating back to the late First Temple period, contain such a well-preserved, clearly articulated religious text? This was a time when much of Israel's population, especially in the urban centers of Jerusalem, had already embraced monotheism, the worship of a single, all-powerful God. The inscription on the amulets is a vivid reminder of this evolving religious identity, and its connection to the Hebrew Bible raises further questions about the early history of the biblical texts themselves. Were these blessings part of a broader oral tradition? Were they already in use as part of official liturgy long before the canonical texts were ever written? Adding to the mystery is the material itself, the silver of the amulets. Why would the Israelites choose such an expensive and durable material to inscribe such a simple blessing? Silver was valuable, used for both trade and ornamentation, but it was also a medium that could endure the ravages of time. Did the people of ancient Israel use this material to ensure that these words would last throughout the centuries as a permanent symbol of their faith? Or was this a personal amulet, perhaps commissioned by an individual who sought divine protection? Despite the clear connection between these amulets and the ancient Hebrew scriptures, there remain many questions that cannot be answered definitively. Some scholars believe that the inscription is evidence of an early form of religious ritual, a kind of proto-priestly liturgy used to bless individuals. Yet others are more cautious, wondering if this was merely a regional variant of a much older tradition, handed down by different groups who once lived in the region. Another compelling mystery lies in the location of the discovery. Qumran, known primarily for the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, was once home to a community, possibly the Essenes, who left behind a treasure trove of religious manuscripts. But the Ketef Hinnom amulets were found some distance away, not far from the heart of ancient Jerusalem. The fact that they were found in such an unexpected location raises the possibility that there were other equally important spiritual practices occurring in parallel with the more widely known sects of the time. Were the people of Ketef Hinnom part of a separate religious movement, or did they have close ties to Jerusalem's more established traditions? Some researchers have even suggested that these amulets could have been part of a diplomatic gift, traded or gifted to foreign dignitaries, spreading the practice of Hebrew blessings beyond the borders of ancient Israel. Could these silver amulets have been meant as symbols of peace or protection, offered as tokens of goodwill from the kingdom of Judah to its neighbors in Egypt, Assyria, or Babylon? The connection between the Ketef Hinnom scrolls and the Dead Sea Scrolls offers yet another layer of intrigue. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in the caves of Qumran, contain some of the oldest and most significant biblical manuscripts known to humanity. They include fragments from nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, and provide invaluable insight into the religious and social life of the ancient Jewish community. The similarity between the inscriptions on the Ketef Hinnom amulets and the texts found among the Dead Sea Scrolls suggests that these traditions may have been much more widespread and ingrained in the culture of ancient Israel than previously thought. Could these scrolls have been part of a larger body of sacred texts hidden away by a religious community, waiting for the right time to reveal their message? While the Ketef Hinnom amulets are among the earliest examples of Hebrew writing, they also raise more questions than they answer. Why were these blessings preserved in such a rare, durable material? Who commissioned them, and why? What does this ancient text tell us about the spiritual practices of the Israelites at a time when the written Bible was still a distant idea? And how might this discovery reshape our understanding of the origins of Hebrew, the Bible, and the complex religious landscape of the ancient Near East? As the Ketef Hinnom scrolls continue to be analyzed and interpreted by scholars, the mystery of their origins remains unresolved. These tiny fragments of silver, inscribed with a divine blessing, remain an enduring testament to the complexities and contradictions of ancient Israel. Were they relics of a long-lost kingdom, tokens of a ritualistic tradition, or simply the remnants of a people whose faith would shape the course of human history? With each new discovery, the questions only multiply, leaving us to wonder what other texts, blessings, and secrets from the ancient world remain hidden, waiting for their own moment to be uncovered. Deep within the heart of ancient Assyria, in the ruins of Nimrud, also known as Kalhu, towering over the dust of centuries, stands one of the most awe-inspiring creations of the ancient world, the winged bull. These colossal winged creatures, half man, half beast, guard the gateways of the Assyrian palaces, casting long shadows over the stone floors as if frozen in time. Carved from massive blocks of limestone, each winged bull measures more than 13 feet tall and weighs several tons, an imposing reminder of the might and grandeur of the Assyrian Empire, which once stretched across much of the Near East. The winged bulls, or lamassu as they are known, are masterpieces of Assyrian artistry, renowned for their intricate craftsmanship and monumental size. Their role, however, extends far beyond mere decoration. These imposing figures were designed to serve as powerful symbols of divine protection, placed at the entrances of royal palaces and cities to ward off evil and to signify the authority of the king. The lamassu, with their human heads and the bodies of bulls or lions, represent the fusion of human intellect and animal strength, a visual manifestation of the balance of power and wisdom that Assyrian kings sought to project. The lamassu were not just artistic representations, but integral parts of Assyrian religion and politics. They were thought to embody the power of Ashur, the chief god of the Assyrian pantheon, who was often depicted as a winged human figure. These statues served as protective guardians, standing as sentinels to ensure the king's dominance and the security of his empire. They were placed at entrances to royal palaces and temples, and many of these statues were adorned with inscriptions extolling the king's greatness, as well as divine blessings for prosperity and protection. But despite their prominence, there is something deeply mysterious about the lamassu. What do these monumental figures truly represent? And why have they captured the imagination of so many scholars and historians for centuries? The first mystery lies in their creation. Each lamassu was sculpted from single, enormous blocks of stone, sometimes weighing over 30 tons. It's remarkable to think that in an era long before the invention of modern tools, the Assyrian craftsmen were able to shape and transport these massive stones to the gates of their royal cities. The precision with which the sculptures were carved is nothing short of extraordinary. How did they achieve such fine detail? How did they lift these massive stones and position them with such accuracy? And how did the ancient Assyrians manage to transport these colossal sculptures over long distances, sometimes from quarries far away? One theory is that the Assyrians used a system of ramps, levers, and pulleys to transport and position the stones. Others suggest that the statues may have been carved in situ, right at the location where they were intended to stand. However, no definitive explanation has been found, and this aspect of the Lamasu's construction remains a subject of speculation and debate. Another mystery surrounding the Lamasu is the significance of their symbolism. What is the deeper meaning behind their hybrid forms? Why combine human heads with animal bodies? While it's clear that the Lamasu served as symbols of divine protection and strength, some scholars speculate that the human head represents the wisdom of the king and the divine authority of Ashur, while the animal body symbolizes the power and might needed to maintain order and protect the realm. But could there be more to the design? Could the Lamasu have served a more complex metaphysical purpose, tied to the beliefs of ancient Assyrians about the afterlife, or perhaps the protection of their gods? The most intriguing and unanswered question about the Lamasu, however, is their mysterious disappearance. The ancient Assyrian cities of Nimrud and Nineveh were once flourishing centers of power, but today they lie in ruins, victims of centuries of warfare, plunder, and the ravages of time. Most of the Lamasu statues that once graced these cities have been lost to history, either destroyed, buried, or taken to distant lands. The greatest blow to the Lamasu's legacy came in the early 21st century, when the violent conflict in Iraq led to the destruction of many priceless artifacts, including some of the Lamasu statues at Nimrud. Yet despite their seeming disappearance, the Lamasu remain enigmatic figures. How were these guardians regarded by the ancient Assyrians, and what did they mean to the people who carved them? There is a curious tension in the way the Lamasu are portrayed in ancient texts. While they were undeniably symbols of power, there are also hints that they may have represented something more, perhaps even a link between the mortal and the divine. Were these sculptures viewed as living entities, imbued with a spiritual force that transcended their material form? Did the Assyrians believe the Lamasu could somehow protect the king and the empire not only from external threats, but from internal strife or divine wrath? Moreover, the Lamasu statues, often placed at the entrances to royal palaces, were not just symbolic protectors, but also representations of the divine mandate that the king wielded. These were not merely decorative objects. They were political statements meant to convey the king's relationship with the gods. In a sense, the Lamasu were not just statues, but the very embodiment of Assyrian sovereignty and divine favor. But how did the people who first encountered them interpret these figures? What did the gods of Assyria see in the faces of these winged bulls? And how did they influence the fate of the empire? And then, there is the larger question. What happened to the lost Lamasu? Some were carried off to the museums of Europe, while others, tragically, were reduced to rubble by modern conflicts. Could these statues, once symbolizing the absolute power of the Assyrian king, hold the key to understanding the rise and fall of one of the ancient world's most formidable empires? The Lamasu stand as silent sentinels to the mystery of Assyria, guardians of a forgotten world. We can only wonder, what secrets did these mighty figures once hold, and what still remains hidden beneath the layers of time and history? How many more clues to their meaning, clues that could unlock the true essence of the Assyrian Empire, remain buried, waiting to be discovered? The mystery of the winged bulls endures, and with it, the secrets of the ancient world. Earth lie the ruins of a once great civilization, the Elamites. A culture that thrived long before the rise of Persia, the Elamites were the architects of one of the most mysterious and enigmatic treasures of the ancient world. Despite the passing of millennia, the mystery of their lost treasure continues to captivate historians and archaeologists alike. The Elamite civilization, flourishing between 2700 BCE and 539 BCE, was centered in what is now modern-day southwestern Iran, particularly around the ancient cities of Susa and Anshan. The Elamites were a powerful people, often in competition with their neighbors, the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians. Yet despite their significant role in the ancient world, much of their history and culture remains a riddle, obscured by time and the erosion of records. While the Elamites were known for their impressive architectural feats and advancements in metallurgy, perhaps their most intriguing legacy is a treasure, lost to history, that has never been found, but whose existence is suggested by ancient accounts, scattered artifacts, and lingering legends. This treasure, believed to have been hidden in the desert sands of ancient Elamite territory, has fueled speculation and intrigue for centuries. But what exactly was this treasure? Where did it go? And what, if anything, remains of it today? The first hint of this lost treasure comes from the historical records of the Achaemenid Persians, who, after defeating the Elamites, claimed to have looted vast riches from their capital of Susa. Some accounts suggest that these treasures were so great they could have rivaled those of Babylon or even Egypt. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, writes about the spoils taken from Susa after its conquest by Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BCE. But despite these mentions, the specifics of the treasure remain vague. What was contained in this vast hoard of riches? Gold? Precious stones? Sacred artifacts? Or something far more enigmatic? Something whose value could not be measured in material wealth alone? For centuries, the city of Susa was considered the likely source of the treasure, and archaeologists have uncovered numerous Elamite artifacts in the area, including intricately crafted statues, cylindrical seals, and cuneiform tablets inscribed with the strange, undeciphered script of the Elamites. Some have speculated that the treasure was hidden within the city walls, perhaps buried beneath the foundations of ancient temples or royal palaces, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered. Yet, despite extensive excavation efforts, no one has yet found a hoard of riches that could explain the tales of Elamite wealth. Instead, the desert surrounding Susa remains strangely silent, its secrets concealed beneath centuries of shifting sand and the passage of time. A more mysterious clue emerges from the Elamite pantheon, the gods and sacred objects of the Elamites themselves. Ancient texts speak of a divine relic known as the Eye of Elam, a mysterious artifact said to be imbued with great spiritual power. This object, described in some sources as a gemstone or a golden idol, was believed to hold the favor of the Elamite gods. But what happened to the Eye of Elam? Did it become part of the treasure lost during the Persian conquest? Or did it disappear long before the fall of the Elamite civilization? The mystery surrounding this artifact is further deepened by the absence of any definitive description or surviving image of it. Could the treasure of the Elamites also have included sacred texts, scrolls, or other forms of ancient knowledge that were thought to hold esoteric wisdom? The Elamite script, still not fully understood by modern scholars, may have contained clues to their ancient rituals, prophecies, or divine instructions, secrets that could have been guarded and hidden away after the downfall of the Elamite civilization. Might this knowledge have been so sacred, so powerful, that it was deliberately concealed, possibly carried away by priests or royal officials to protect it from invaders? As the years went by, the mystery of the Elamite treasure continued to grow. Speculation reached its peak when explorers and treasure hunters ventured into the deserts of Iran, drawn by the legends of riches hidden in the ancient cities of Elam. Some have even suggested that the treasure may have been lost in the shifting sands, buried in a way that could never be uncovered. Could the Elamites have taken their wealth with them as they fled from their conquerors, hiding it in secret caches scattered throughout the desert? Or perhaps the treasure was deliberately hidden, an act of defiance against those who sought to erase their memory and culture from history. There are those who believe that the treasure may not be material at all. Instead, some suggest that it is symbolic, a lost piece of the Elamite spiritual legacy. The Eye of Elam, for example, may have been a representation of the ancient connection between the Elamites and their gods, a connection that, when severed, left the treasure lost in both a literal and metaphysical sense. Could the treasure be a metaphor for the lost knowledge, the unrecorded wisdom, of a civilization whose legacy was nearly erased by the sands of time? Another theory that persists is that the treasure remains hidden somewhere within the vast deserts of Iran, tucked away in an undiscovered tomb or buried beneath a forgotten city. Some scholars have pointed to the ruins of Anshan, the early capital of the Elamites, suggesting that an undiscovered tomb lies within its walls, waiting to be unearthed. But such a discovery would require not only the right archaeological methods, but also the uncovering of secrets long buried by natural forces and human hands. The mystery of the Elamite treasure remains unsolved. Every new excavation, every new theory, seems to only deepen the puzzle. Was it ever as grand as the ancient accounts suggest? Was it truly a hoard of wealth and sacred objects, or was it something more elusive, a set of intangible truths hidden within the desert, waiting for the right person to unlock its mysteries? As with many of the ancient enigmas of the Middle East, the treasure of the Elamites remains elusive. What secrets, if any, lie beneath the sands of their ancient kingdom? What knowledge, what riches, or what divine relics might still be waiting to be discovered in the depths of history? The answers lie hidden, perhaps for eternity, in the arid landscapes of Iran, lost to time but never forgotten. Beneath the ancient streets of Jerusalem, where history unfolds in layers of time and significance, a strange phenomenon persists, one that has puzzled archaeologists, scientists, and theologians alike for centuries. The Sounding Stones, a collection of massive, ancient rocks scattered across the city's ancient walls and pathways, hold within them a mystery that refuses to be explained. Located just outside the walls of the Old City, near the Temple Mount, the Sounding Stones are no ordinary stones. Some are large and heavy, their surfaces intricately carved with symbols and designs that seem to carry no immediate significance. Others are oddly placed in such a way that their resonance seems intentional, strategically positioned in the ancient landscape, where they hum with an unusual vibration when struck or touched. Known only by a handful of curious explorers and researchers, these stones remain one of Jerusalem's most enigmatic features, though their origins have yet to be definitively identified. The phenomenon is not simply a matter of curious acoustics. The stones seem to emit a distinct sound, often described as a low-frequency hum or resonance, almost as if the stones themselves were alive. When struck lightly, they vibrate, producing a reverberation that can be heard and sometimes even felt in the surrounding air. The sound that emanates from these stones is unlike anything in the natural environment. Some describe it as eerily melodious, while others claim it sounds almost mechanical in nature, as if the stones were designed to resonate at a frequency that is not immediately comprehensible. Why do these stones make such sounds? And how were they constructed to produce them? The story of these stones begins with the ancient construction of Jerusalem, particularly during the era of Herod the Great, who dramatically expanded and rebuilt the Second Temple in the 1st century BCE. Many believe that these stones were part of that grand architectural endeavor. Built into the temple structure, they could have served some ritualistic purpose, designed to produce sound during religious ceremonies. Perhaps these stones were intended to create a soundscape, a kind of auditory experience, meant to invoke a spiritual or transcendent atmosphere in the temple. Others suggest that these stones might have been strategically placed by the ancient builders of the city with the intention of amplifying sound for ritual purposes. Was it an early form of acoustic engineering, where the architects of Jerusalem understood how to harness sound to create a more mystical or powerful experience for those who entered the sacred spaces? Could the resonance from these stones have been used to enhance the divine experience of the faithful, creating an otherworldly environment as they prayed or offered sacrifices to their gods? Despite the various theories, there is no definitive explanation for why these stones were constructed or placed in such a way. Archaeologists have discovered similar resonating stones in other parts of the Middle East, but nowhere else are they so clearly linked to a specific religious site or structure. What sets the sounding stones of Jerusalem apart is their seemingly deliberate positioning and the ongoing mystery of their purpose. Were they a form of divine communication, used by priests or kings to access the sacred realm? Or perhaps were they simply part of a larger acoustic system, designed to create a specific atmosphere of spiritual elevation or ritualistic importance? In the centuries since their construction, the sounding stones have been largely forgotten by the general public, hidden under the weight of Jerusalem's political and religious conflicts. However, in recent decades, as interest in ancient mysteries has grown, some researchers and sound engineers have begun to take notice of these peculiar objects. One of the most intriguing discoveries has been the fact that these stones are often aligned with particular astronomical events. In a few instances, the hum from the stones is said to coincide with celestial alignments, such as the solstices or the rise of specific stars. Could this alignment have had significance to the ancient inhabitants of Jerusalem? Did the stone's resonance serve as a symbolic connection between the heavens and the earth, amplifying the voices of the people to communicate with the gods? Others theorize that these stones might have had a more practical purpose, perhaps tied to the defense of the city. Could they have been used as part of an early warning system, emitting sounds when enemies approached? The resonance of these stones, some suggest, could have been a primitive form of sonic defense, amplifying sounds that might alert the people of Jerusalem to danger, much as modern-day cities use loudspeakers to warn of natural disasters or military threats. But this theory, like all others, remains purely speculative, and there is no archaeological evidence to support it. Perhaps the most mystical theory surrounding the sounding stones is that they are part of an ancient ritualistic tradition, one that is linked to the very foundation of Jerusalem's religious identity. Could these stones, with their strange resonance, be tied to the city's ancient connection to King Solomon and the legendary wisdom associated with his reign? Some have even suggested that the stones may be remnants of ancient knowledge, passed down through generations as part of esoteric traditions, intended to keep certain secrets hidden within the sacred walls of Jerusalem. Could the resonance of the stones have once been thought to unlock hidden knowledge or even access a divine frequency, allowing the faithful to communicate directly with God or the gods? As we ponder these possibilities, we are left with a sense of wonder, mixed with a healthy dose of skepticism. The mystery of the sounding stones is one that has yet to be solved, and it remains as elusive as the ancient secrets of Jerusalem itself. What are these stones, really? Are they simple acoustic curiosities, or do they represent something far deeper, something that transcends time and remains hidden beneath layers of history? One thing is certain: these stones and the resonance they carry are more than just relics of a forgotten past. They are silent sentinels, waiting to reveal their secrets, if only we can learn to listen. As we stand before them, we are reminded of how much we have yet to understand about the ancient world and its mysteries. What remains, buried in the sands of time, waiting for the right moment to hum once again? The story of Xerxes I, one of the most powerful and enigmatic kings of ancient Persia, is often told through the lens of his dramatic military campaigns, most notably his invasion of Greece in 480 BCE, which culminated in the infamous battles of Thermopylae and Salamis. Xerxes, son of the legendary king Darius I, ruled the Achaemenid Empire at the height of its power, overseeing an empire that stretched from the Indus Valley in the east to the Balkans in the west. Yet, despite his immense power and historical importance, there is a deep and lingering mystery surrounding his final years and his fate after the fall of his military ambitions. Xerxes' story is one of contrasts, grandeur and tragedy, triumph and downfall. While his military defeat at Salamis and the subsequent retreat of his forces marked a significant turning point in his reign, it was not the end of his story. The aftermath of his campaign left the once feared king to grapple with internal strife, a weakening empire, and questions surrounding his very legacy. The official historical record is filled with references to his royal court, his building projects, and the ongoing struggles he faced. Yet, there is something missing, a gap that scholars have long tried to fill. Xerxes I, also known as Xerxes the Great, was a king of immense ambition, a ruler who sought to expand his father's empire into the very heart of Greece. His invasion, though initially successful, ended in disaster, marking the beginning of the end of Persian dominance in the Mediterranean. But what happened after this defeat? How did Xerxes, this once mighty king, handle the collapse of his grand vision? It is in the latter years of Xerxes' reign that the greatest mystery arises. The most perplexing question remains: what happened to the Persian king after the catastrophic losses in Greece? Historians and scholars have long debated the final years of his reign, and most accounts tell of a descent into obscurity. Yet, despite a few historical references, the mysterious fate of Xerxes remains largely unrecorded. How did the man who once commanded the largest empire the world had ever seen come to be so strangely forgotten in the annals of history? Some ancient sources suggest that Xerxes was assassinated, a claim supported by Herodotus, who writes that Xerxes was murdered by his own bodyguard, Artabanus, in 465 BCE, just a few years after his defeat at Salamis. Herodotus also notes that Xerxes' successor, Artaxerxes I, was the son of this assassination, though details surrounding the event are scarce and often contradictory. Was this the true end of Xerxes' reign, or was the assassination a mere cover-up for a more complex political struggle? The circumstances surrounding Xerxes' death remain highly speculative. Some historians believe that Artabanus, the commander of Xerxes' elite guard, orchestrated the murder in a bid to seize power for himself. In this scenario, the assassination would have been motivated by a combination of political ambition and personal resentment toward the king. However, others argue that the assassination might have been carried out in response to growing dissatisfaction within the Persian court. Xerxes' failure in Greece and the perceived weakness of his later years may have made him vulnerable to internal dissent, leading to his murder. Even more puzzling is the apparent lack of commemorations following his death. Unlike the grand burial tombs and elaborate memorials of other Persian kings, such as Darius I, Xerxes' final resting place remains a mystery. Some sources indicate that his body may have been placed in the royal necropolis at Naksh-e-Rustam, a site in Persia that houses the tombs of several Achaemenid rulers, but no definitive evidence of his tomb has ever been uncovered. Given the grandeur of Persian funerary practices, it seems strange that Xerxes, the ruler of an empire that once spanned much of the known world, would be laid to rest in such an undistinguished manner. This silence around Xerxes' death has led some to speculate that the mystery surrounding his tomb could be a deliberate attempt to erase his memory. If Xerxes was assassinated, could his burial site have been intentionally obscured as part of a larger political move to distance the Achaemenid dynasty from his reign? Perhaps the memory of his defeat in Greece, coupled with the tragedy of his later years, was seen as something best forgotten by the new regime, In biblical accounts, Xerxes is also mentioned under the name Ahasuerus, particularly in the Book of Esther. In this context, he is portrayed as a somewhat more distant, almost enigmatic figure involved in the events surrounding the salvation of the Jewish people in ancient Persia. While this portrayal is likely an interpretation rather than a strictly historical account, it adds yet another layer to the complex legacy of Xerxes. His portrayal in the Bible suggests that he may have been seen in a more human light, perhaps even as a ruler whose flaws and decisions could be examined within the larger context of divine will. As we piece together the fragments of Xerxes' story, it becomes clear that much of his reign and legacy has been lost to time. Beyond the grand battles and the conquest of Greece, Xerxes' personal life, his struggles, and his ultimate fate remain clouded in mystery. What is the truth behind the Persian king's final days? Why do so many of the details surrounding his death remain unexplained? Was his end truly the result of political betrayal, or is there a deeper story yet to be uncovered? One of the most intriguing aspects of Xerxes' life is the apparent contrast between his ambitious vision for the Persian Empire and the tragic events that followed. Xerxes was a man who sought to extend his empire across vast stretches of land, a king who commanded the might of armies and built incredible structures in his honor. And yet, his story seems to fade into obscurity after his failed campaign in Greece. Could it be that the weight of his defeats and the internal conflict that followed were too great to overcome? Or was there something more at play, something hidden beneath the surface of his reign? The mystery of Xerxes' fate serves as a reminder of how much history remains buried, lost, or deliberately obscured. As with many figures from the ancient world, his story exists in pieces, scattered across the pages of ancient texts, inscriptions, and legends. While we may never know the full truth behind his death and legacy, the unanswered questions surrounding his life offer a tantalizing glimpse into the complexities of the ancient Persian world. Did Xerxes meet a tragic end, lost to assassination and political intrigue? Or did he fade into obscurity as the empire he once ruled began to crumble? What more lies hidden beneath the shifting sands of history, waiting for the right moment to emerge from the shadows? The mystery of Xerxes' remains unsolved, a story of power, defeat, and the passage of time. Amid the dust of ancient Mesopotamia, one of the oldest known civilizations, the Sumerians left behind a legacy that has continued to captivate and mystify scholars for millennia. One of the most intriguing and enigmatic remnants of their advanced society are the Sumerian cylinder seals, small, intricately carved objects that served both as signature stamps and symbols of authority. These seals were created with a simple yet sophisticated technology, carving intricate scenes and writing into the surface of a cylindrical stone, which would then be rolled onto clay or soft materials to leave an impression. They were, in essence, a form of identity, much like a modern signature or seal, carrying the mark of power, wealth, and influence. Each cylinder seal tells a story. The symbols etched into their surfaces, often accompanied by images of kings, gods, mythological creatures, and daily life, offer a glimpse into the Sumerian worldview. Yet, despite centuries of study, one of the most intriguing aspects of these seals remains elusive: the true meaning behind the Sumerian script inscribed on them. Unlike other ancient languages, the Sumerian language remains isolated, with no known relatives, and its full understanding continues to elude linguists, historians, and archaeologists alike. Even though the Sumerian script has been partially deciphered, the precise function of these seals and the full extent of the meanings hidden within their carvings has never been completely unlocked. It is in these mysterious symbols and impressions where the enigma of the Sumerian cylinder seals truly lies. Many of the seals feature pictorial representations that narrate the epic tales of gods, heroes, and kings. Some seals show ritualistic scenes, with figures worshipping deities or performing ceremonial acts. Others depict mythical creatures, such as the lion-headed eagle or the bull-man, figures that seem to occupy the boundary between the natural and the supernatural. The stories these seals tell are often otherworldly, drawing connections between the mundane and the divine, suggesting that the Sumerians understood their world through a lens that blended myth, religion, and political power. But what was their true purpose? Historians agree that these cylinder seals were most likely used by administrators and rulers to mark official documents or possessions, similar to how a signature would be used today. They were used in trade, legal agreements, and administrative affairs, making them an essential part of Sumerian bureaucratic and economic life. Their intricate carvings and exquisite craftsmanship suggest that the individuals who commissioned these seals held significant power, wealth, or influence. And yet, as we study these artifacts, it becomes clear that their meaning may extend far beyond mere administrative use. The inscriptions on these seals often contain cuneiform writing, a script made up of wedge-shaped marks impressed into clay. The Sumerians, considered one of the first civilizations to develop writing, used cuneiform for a variety of purposes: recording laws, economic transactions, religious texts, and literary works. But unlike later systems of writing, Sumerian cuneiform was not easily understood. While many scholars have made significant strides in deciphering Sumerian, its complex and evolving nature means that certain words, phrases, and concepts remain mysterious. What is particularly intriguing is that not all cylinder seals contain the same script. Some feature distinct variations, suggesting that there might have been regional differences in the language, or that the script had a symbolic purpose, possibly as a ritualistic or sacred language reserved for certain occasions or individuals. Could it be that the Sumerians were deliberately encoding meaning, creating a language of secrecy embedded within these objects? The possibility that these seals held hidden messages or coded information has led to various theories about their deeper purpose. One of the more speculative theories surrounding the cylinder seals revolves around the idea that the Sumerians may have been utilizing these objects as ritual tools, perhaps linked to sacred rites or divine communication. In many of the scenes depicted on the seals, gods are shown interacting with humans, offering blessings or engaging in ceremonies. Some scholars have suggested that the seals might have been used in rituals, where their inscriptions served as a divine language, one that could be understood only by the initiated, or that the seals themselves were used to invoke the gods. Could these cylinder seals be more than just administrative tools, perhaps keys to a mystical understanding of the universe, or portals through which the Sumerians believed they could connect with the divine? There are also those who speculate that the symbols carved into the seals could be a kind of language of power, an ancient form of visual communication used by rulers to assert their authority and influence. By rolling the seal onto a surface, an individual could leave their mark, an impression of their will, their power, and their divine right to rule. In this sense, the seals might have been used as a form of propaganda, ensuring that the king's image and message were seen across the empire, just as modern political leaders use symbols and media to project their influence. Perhaps even more intriguing is the fact that some of the images on these seals seem to depict cosmic or astronomical motifs, leading some researchers to suggest that the seals may have been used to document or encode celestial events. A number of seals feature representations of the sun, moon, and star patterns, indicating that the Sumerians might have been keenly aware of the movement of celestial bodies. Could these symbols reflect an understanding of astronomy far ahead of their time? Were these seals designed to record important astronomical phenomena, or were they part of a ritual calendar that marked significant cosmic events tied to the gods? However, the real mystery lies in the language itself. While scholars have made significant progress in deciphering parts of the Sumerian script, the meanings of many of the inscriptions on the cylinder seals remain unclear. The lexicon of the Sumerian language, though extensive, is still far from complete, and many words and symbols remain untranslated. Could it be that the cuneiform inscriptions on these seals hold secrets that have yet to be uncovered, messages that have remained locked away for thousands of years, waiting for the right key to unlock their meaning? As we delve deeper into the study of the Sumerian cylinder seals, we are reminded of how much remains hidden in the sands of time. These small, seemingly mundane objects, carved with symbols and stories, hold the potential to reveal profound insights into the culture, beliefs, and secrets of one of the world's oldest civilizations. But for now, many of their mysteries remain just that, mysteries, waiting to be understood. What messages are still embedded in the carvings of these ancient seals? Is there a deeper significance to the symbols and words that elude us? Or are we simply on the edge of a much larger puzzle, one that ties together the mystical, political, and divine worlds of the Sumerians? Only time and further research will reveal the answers to these questions. But for now, the Sumerian cylinder seals remain a tantalizing mystery, an invitation to look closer, listen more intently, and wonder about what might still be hidden beneath the surface. Hidden deep within the rugged landscape of the Persian plateau, a place where time seems to stand still and history is often obscured by the shifting sands of the ages, lies a lost battle, a secret of ancient warfare that has baffled historians and military experts alike. This is the story of the Persian Gate, a narrow mountain pass in the Zagros Mountains that once held the key to one of the most strategic and dramatic military engagements in Persian history. Despite its importance, this battle remains one of the great historical enigmas, overshadowed by other more famous wars and conflicts. Yet, it was a battle that shaped the fate of empires, one whose mystery lingers in the air like the dust of ancient armies long gone. The Persian Gate was located between the ancient cities of Persepolis and Susa, two of the great capitals of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. In its time, this pass was an important choke point, a natural gateway that controlled access between the northern and southern regions of the empire. To pass through it was to control the flow of armies, trade, and communication between the empire's vast territories. The significance of this pass was clear to all who sought to dominate the region, and in the year 330 BCE, the fate of the Persian Empire would hinge on its control. In the winter of 330 BCE, after Alexander the Great had already won the Battle of Gaugamela, his pursuit of the last remnants of the Persian king Darius III took him through this very pass. The Persian Gate became the site of a final stand, an attempt to stem the tide of conquest that had swept across the ancient world. But what happened here, exactly? Why does history, with all its records of Alexander's victories, fail to fully explain the battle that took place in this critical mountain pass? What we know is this: the Persian Gate was guarded by a force led by Darius's generals, under the command of Artabazus and Bessus, two men entrusted with defending the empire's last strongholds. Their mission was clear: hold the gate, delay the Macedonian army, and buy time for Darius III to escape. But despite their desperate efforts, the Persian defense faltered. Alexander's forces, trained in the art of swift warfare and relentless pursuit, were able to break through. The strategic value of the pass was lost, and with it, the final chance for the Persian Empire to survive. While the details of the Persian Gate battle are well documented in broad strokes, they are shrouded in mystery when it comes to the specifics. Ancient sources, including the accounts of Arrian and Plutarch, mention that the Macedonian army faced fierce resistance at the gate. The Persian forces had used the narrow terrain of the pass to their advantage, hoping to trap the invaders in a tight space, forcing them into a defensive posture where they could repel any attack. Yet, despite the difficult terrain and the determination of the Persian defenders, the Macedonian forces ultimately prevailed. The battle itself remains vague in historical records, with varying accounts that offer different perspectives on how the battle unfolded. Some sources suggest that Alexander's army overcame the defenders in a single decisive attack, while others suggest that it was a more protracted engagement. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Persian Gate is the lack of physical evidence. Today, the location of the pass remains identifiable, nestled in the Zagros Mountains, but there is no archaeological trace of the battle itself. No massive burial sites of fallen soldiers, no weapons, no armor. Could it be that the remnants of this crucial confrontation have been lost to the ages, buried under centuries of neglect, or are they deliberately hidden from view? The absence of such evidence raises intriguing questions about the nature of ancient battles. Did they leave behind no trace of the violence that took place, or is something being kept from us? Could the strategic importance of the Persian Gate have been erased from history for a reason? One theory suggests that the Persian elite, still reeling from the fall of their empire, might have deliberately obscured the details of this lost battle. If the Persian forces were defeated here, perhaps they sought to downplay the loss, choosing instead to focus on the glory of previous victories. But if the battle was so critical, so emblematic of the empire's last stand, why has its story been almost completely overshadowed by other historical events? The mystery deepens when we consider the theoretical significance of the battle. If Alexander's conquest of the Persian Gate had been delayed or defeated, would the course of history have changed? Darius III was already weakened by internal strife and external invasion, but the loss of the gate might have signaled a final, irreparable blow to the Persian king. Some historians argue that the Persian Gate battle, though not the final engagement of Alexander's campaign, played a pivotal role in the collapse of Achaemenid rule. Could the Macedonian victory have been so decisive that the Persian Empire never had a chance to regroup and reclaim its territories? There is also the mysterious role of the natural terrain in the Persian Gate's defense. The pass itself is no ordinary route. It is a natural bottleneck formed by towering cliffs and steep hillsides. As a strategic location, it was designed to impede large-scale military movements. The Persian defenders took advantage of this bottleneck, positioning their forces to block the pass and cause maximum disruption. However, this strategic advantage was ultimately no match for the Macedonian army's ingenuity. Alexander's forces were skilled in siege tactics, and though the pass was a formidable obstacle, they were able to create a path through the mountains, eventually overpowering the defenders. But why did the Persian forces fail to better defend such a crucial location? Was it poor planning, a lack of resources, or perhaps a deeper internal conflict among the Persian generals? Could there have been divisions within the Persian command that contributed to their defeat? These questions remain unanswered, adding to the intrigue of the Persian Gate's lost battle. Another unanswered mystery is the legacy of the Persian Gate itself. Though Alexander's victory over the Persian forces in the pass may have been a decisive moment in his campaign, the place itself seems to have been left largely forgotten in the history of both the Persian and Macedonian empires. Unlike other famous battlegrounds of antiquity, such as Thermopylae or Gaugamela, the Persian Gate has never been fully explored, its secrets hidden beneath centuries of neglect. Why is this? Were the physical remnants of the battle lost, or has the location's significance been overshadowed by the rise of new political powers? Despite the absence of definitive records, the Persian Gate remains an indelible part of the story of Alexander's conquest, a lost chapter that has yet to be fully uncovered. The mystery of this strategic pass and the battle that took place there continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and curious minds alike. While the passage of time may have obscured much of the battle's details, the questions it raises about the nature of war, the collapse of empires, and the stories we choose to remember are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. What secrets remain buried within the Persian Gate? Why has this decisive battle been largely forgotten by history? Perhaps, in the shifting sands of time, there is more to be discovered, if we are willing to look hard enough. Amid the sun-drenched hills of ancient Ugarit, an ancient city once thrived along the Mediterranean coast, a cultural and trade hub that flourished more than 3,000 years ago. It was here, in what is now modern Ras Shamra, Syria, that a remarkable discovery would occur. A discovery that would open a window into a forgotten world and a lost language that had been silent for millennia. The city of Ugarit was a melting pot of ancient civilizations, and the Ugaritic script found in the ruins of its palace and temples holds an extraordinary secret, a language that defies easy translation, filled with mysteries that still remain unresolved today. The Ugaritic tablets, a collection of cuneiform-style inscriptions, were unearthed in the 1920s, and they revealed a rich literary and religious tradition, providing a glimpse into the culture of a civilization that was closely intertwined with the great empires of the ancient Near East. Written on clay tablets, the inscriptions contained both epic tales and ritualistic hymns, along with legal and administrative records. But these texts were not written in the familiar Akkadian or Babylonian scripts. Instead, they presented a unique and unfamiliar script, a script that, despite being similar to other forms of cuneiform, remains largely indecipherable in its entirety. At first glance, the Ugaritic language might seem like another ancient tongue trapped in the sands of time. It belongs to the Semitic family, closely related to Hebrew and Phoenician, yet it also contains striking features that set it apart. The script itself is composed of 30 characters, but what makes it especially fascinating is its dual nature. The characters were used not only to represent sounds, as in a conventional alphabet, but also to symbolize ideas and concepts. This duality of the script invites speculation. Could it have been intentionally designed to carry layers of meaning, a type of visual language that transcended simple phonetics? Was it used for some form of elite communication, its full understanding reserved for a select few? The city of Ugarit, known to its people as Ras Shamra, stood as a symbol of cultural convergence in the ancient world. Positioned at the crossroads of various civilizations, the Egyptians to the south, the Hittites to the north, and the Mesopotamians to the east, it was a place of great political and economic importance. Ugarit's wealth was derived from its maritime trade routes, which extended to distant lands, including Cyprus, Anatolia, and even parts of North Africa. Here, the kingdoms of the ancient world met, exchanged goods, and influenced each other, leaving an indelible mark on the region's cultural fabric. It was also in Ugarit that some of the oldest religious texts were discovered, ones that reveal a deep connection between the gods and the people. These hymns and prayers invoked a pantheon of deities, most notably Baal, the storm god, who played a central role in the Ugaritic religion. The religious significance of these texts is immense, shedding light on the rituals, myths, and cosmologies that shaped the lives of the Ugaritic people. Yet these texts remain enigmatic, with their meaning only partially understood. The ritualistic language used to describe the divine is both poetic and abstract, leaving scholars to wonder, what do these ancient words reveal about the spiritual worldview of the people of Ugarit? Despite the breakthroughs in understanding the Ugaritic script, much of it remains unclear. Scholars have made great strides in deciphering portions of the language, but many of the texts are still a puzzle. The alphabetic nature of the script, which is somewhat similar to Phoenician, has been crucial in unlocking the meaning of certain words, but many symbols still resist translation. even the most intensive linguistic research has not been able to explain the deeper metaphysical concepts embedded in the texts. Why, for example, does the language seem to express ideas and narratives in ways that other Semitic languages do not? Why do certain characters appear in unexpected combinations? And what do these combinations mean in the context of Ugaritic culture and religion? Some of the more mysterious aspects of Ugaritic include the possible connections between its writing system and the ancient Hebrew script. In fact, many researchers have speculated that the Ugaritic script may have been an early predecessor of the alphabetic script used by the Hebrews, which eventually gave rise to the Phoenician alphabet, the foundation of many modern writing systems. Could the Ugaritic script be the key to understanding the origins of alphabetic writing itself? Is it possible that the mystery of this ancient language holds the answers to the evolution of written communication across the ancient world? Even more intriguing are the religious texts found on Ugaritic tablets. They provide glimpses of rituals and prayers that were not recorded in other ancient civilizations. The myth of Baal, an epic story of divine conflict, triumph, and death, has echoes in later mythologies, particularly in the Canaanite and Hebrew traditions. Could Ugaritic mythology hold hidden connections to the ancient Hebrew Bible? Is there a deeper shared history between these cultures that has been lost in time? The possibility of such a connection invites a reconsideration of how ancient peoples communicated and shared cultural and religious ideas. Another fascinating aspect of Ugaritic is its potential use for ritualistic or magical purposes. In the ancient world, language was often seen as having divine power, and many cultures believed that writing could be used to invoke supernatural forces. Could the Ugaritic script have been used in magical texts to conjure gods, spirits, or protect the land from evil? Some researchers speculate that the language was not merely a tool of communication, but a sacred vehicle that bridged the gap between the material world and the divine realm. Were these texts carefully crafted to preserve the power of words, or were they meant to channel divine influence? The city of Ugarit itself, though discovered nearly a century ago, still holds many secrets within its ruins. The royal palace, where some of the most important inscriptions were found, remains an evocative and mysterious sight. How much of Ugarit's vast archives have we truly uncovered? Could there be additional undiscovered tablets, waiting to reveal more about the Ugaritic people's beliefs, rituals, and daily life? Are there still texts hidden within the ruins, perhaps buried deep beneath centuries of dust, that would provide answers to the questions we have about their culture? The Ugaritic script stands as an extraordinary testament to the cultural richness of ancient civilizations, a key to understanding the linguistic and religious developments of the ancient Near East. Yet, despite the progress we have made, the mystery of the lost language of Ugarit persists. Is it possible that we have yet to uncover the full significance of this ancient civilization? What truths about their world, their gods, and their unique form of communication still lie buried, waiting to be uncovered by future generations of scholars and explorers? As we stand at the edge of this enigma, the questions linger. How much more remains hidden in the symbols and scripts of Ugarit? And what other secrets of the ancient world will we unlock when we finally decipher this lost language in its entirety? The mystery of Ugaritic is far from over, and its full story may still be waiting to be told. In the vast, desolate deserts of southern Arabia, where the winds howl across endless dunes and the sun beats down relentlessly, a quiet mystery has been waiting to be uncovered for millennia. Saba, an ancient kingdom nestled in what is now Yemen, was once a thriving civilization. Known for its advanced culture, its rich trade networks, and its contributions to ancient architecture and astronomy, the Sabaeans left behind a trail of enigmatic inscriptions that have baffled historians, linguists, and archaeologists alike. These inscriptions, now scattered across the ruins of the Sabaean cities, tell of a people whose legacy has been shrouded in mystery and largely forgotten in the annals of history. But what exactly do these inscriptions reveal about the Sabaeans, and why do they remain so difficult to fully decipher? The Sabaean inscriptions are written in an ancient script that scholars have come to call South Arabian, a form of epigraphic writing that flourished in the region for over 1,000 years. This script was primarily used by the Sabaean people from the 9th century BCE until the 6th century CE. Carved into stone and sometimes engraved on copper or bronze, these inscriptions cover a wide range of topics, from royal decrees and religious texts to commercial transactions and monumental declarations. But despite their abundance, there remains a sense of unfinished business when it comes to understanding them. To begin with, the Sabaean language itself, while related to other Semitic languages such as Arabic and Akkadian, remains decidedly distinct. Some scholars have argued that Sabaean was a lingua franca of the Arabian Peninsula, spoken across a wide region, while others suggest it was the language of a specialized elite, reserved for religious and royal affairs. Still others speculate that the inscriptions may be multilingual, with multiple dialects and languages interwoven into one inscription. What makes the Sabaean script so elusive is that, while it shares some common features with other ancient Semitic scripts, it also has unique structural and phonetic elements that have defied translation. Even with modern technology and linguistic expertise, many inscriptions remain unreadable. Perhaps the most famous of these inscriptions are the Sabaean royal inscriptions, which speak of powerful kings who ruled over vast territories and built grand monuments to their deities. One such inscription, found at the ancient site of Marib, reveals the name of King Karibil-Watar, a monarch who reigned during the 7th century BCE, and is credited with the construction of the Great Dam of Marib, an engineering marvel that channeled the waters of the Wadi Hadramaut to irrigate the region. Yet despite the apparent significance of these inscriptions, the content often remains cryptic. The language used to describe the king's deeds is laden with ritualistic and symbolic expressions that appear to be tied to the Sabaean pantheon of gods, most notably Almaka, the moon god, and Athtar, the goddess of fertility. The inscriptions not only speak of earthly power, but also of a divine connection, suggesting that the kings of Saba were not just rulers, but also intermediaries between the gods and their people. At the same time, the Sabaean religion itself is wrapped in layers of mystery. Many of the inscriptions detail rituals and sacrifices made to the gods, but these texts are often incomplete, leaving us with just fragments of an ancient belief system. In the city of Kataban, another center of the Sabaean world, inscriptions have been found that describe elaborate ceremonies involving temples, altars, and sacred offerings, but little is known about the specifics of these religious practices. Did the Sabaeans have a form of divination? Were their secret rites reserved for the elite? And what was the role of the priests and priestesses who were often invoked in these texts? The absence of direct evidence leaves us with only speculation, but the tone of the inscription suggests that the Sabaean religion was deeply ritualistic, and that the divine played a central role in the political and social life of the kingdom. One of the most striking aspects of these inscriptions is the apparent lack of reference to military conflict. Unlike the inscriptions of other ancient civilizations, which often boast of conquests and battles won, the Sabaeans seem to have focused more on construction projects, trade agreements, and rituals. This has led some scholars to suggest that the Sabaeans were more focused on internal stability than on external conquest. Perhaps the peaceful nature of the Sabaean inscriptions reflects the kingdom's reliance on trade routes, agriculture, and religious authority as the foundations of its power. But this peaceful image clashes with the remnants of fortifications and military paraphernalia that have been uncovered in Sabaean archaeological sites. Why did they leave behind so little reference to military affairs? Did they choose to downplay their role as warriors? Or were they simply too powerful to need to document their military exploits? There is also the question of why these inscriptions were created in the first place. The Sabaeans, like many ancient civilizations, understood the power of written language. But what were the true motives behind their inscriptions? Were they meant to commemorate the deeds of their kings, or were they messages to the gods, requesting divine favor? Could they have served a ritualistic purpose, invoking the protection of the deities through the power of the written word? Or was the act of inscription itself a form of spiritual communication, ensuring the king's eternal legacy? The Sabaean script itself is a mystery that invites further inquiry. While scholars have made significant progress in decoding certain aspects of it, large portions of the inscriptions remain untranslated, their meanings hidden behind centuries of time. The script itself is made up of letters and symbols that resemble a blend of Phoenician, Akkadian, and Arabic, but its precise structure defies conventional patterns. Is it possible that the Sabaeans were using a writing system that was purposefully cryptic, perhaps as a form of elite communication meant to be understood only by a select few? If so, what was the purpose of such secrecy, and how did it serve the Sabaean kings in maintaining their power? Another intriguing aspect of the Sabaean inscriptions is the geographical distribution of the texts. While many of the royal inscriptions have been found in the ruins of Marib, Kataban, and Hadramaut, others have appeared as far afield as Ethiopia and Egypt, suggesting that the Sabaeans were not merely regional traders, but part of an extensive network that spanned the ancient world. What were the Sabaeans doing in these distant lands? Were they spreading their religion, negotiating trade agreements, or leaving behind a cultural imprint? Could the mysterious inscriptions have once been intended for an audience far beyond the borders of Arabia, perhaps even the Mediterranean world? And yet, despite the remarkable nature of these inscriptions and the richness of the Sabaean civilization, much of it remains lost to history. The Sabaean language, once an integral part of the cultural fabric of the ancient world, is now silent, its mysteries tucked away in the sands of time. But are these secrets truly lost forever? Will modern technology or new discoveries in the desert unlock the full meaning of the Sabaean inscriptions? And could there still be more hidden tablets, buried in the remote regions of Yemen, that would offer further clues to the history of the Sabaean people and their lost world? As the dust of history continues to settle over the ancient kingdom of Saba, the mystery of their inscriptions remains a puzzle that we have only begun to piece together. And with each fragment of text uncovered, one question persists. What other secrets are hidden in the Sabaean script, and what might they reveal about a civilization long forgotten by the world? The Hidden Valley of the Kings of Persia, a name that evokes images of forgotten tombs, lost treasures, and a once great empire whose legacy is steeped in both history and enigma. The valley, nestled in the remote hills of modern-day Iran, remains one of the most mysterious and poorly understood burial sites of the ancient world. The area is isolated, almost deliberately so, and shrouded in a sense of both royal grandeur and inexplicable silence. In the ancient world, the Persian Empire stood as a vast and powerful force, a testament to the extraordinary leadership and cultural achievements of kings such as Cyrus the Great and Darius I. The empire stretched from the Indus River in the east to the Aegean Sea in the west, encompassing a vast array of cultures, landscapes, and peoples. But when it came to the burial of its kings, Persia took a notably different approach than other ancient civilizations. Unlike Egypt, where the Valley of the Kings is known for its elaborate and monumental tombs, the Persians chose a more subtle and secluded location for their own royal resting place, the Valley of the Kings of Persia, a site that remains shrouded in mystery to this day. The Valley of the Kings of Persia is located near the ancient Persian capital of Persepolis, one of the most stunning and influential cities of the ancient world. Persepolis, once the heart of the Achaemenid Empire, was an architectural marvel, its towering palaces and grandiose structures designed to reflect the immense power and glory of the Persian kings. Yet, despite the grandeur of Persepolis, the tombs of the kings themselves were hidden away in the mountainside of a remote valley, far from the grandeur of their palaces. The valley itself is a breathtakingly beautiful location, with rocky cliffs, winding rivers, and dense vegetation. Yet, it also harbors a palpable sense of desolation and mystery. The tombs themselves are carved into the rock, their entrances marked by simple inscriptions and symbols, unlike the grand stone structures that might be expected of royal tombs. The simplicity of the tombs has led many to wonder, why did the Persian kings choose to bury their rulers in such an understated manner? Was there something more to these tombs, something hidden beneath the surface that we have yet to uncover? The most prominent of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings of Persia is the tomb of Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. Located at Pasargadae, the burial place of Cyrus is nothing like the pyramids of Egypt or the tombs of the pharaohs. Instead, the tomb is a simple stone structure, a small chamber with a single sarcophagus inside. The tomb is remarkably unadorned, lacking the ornate carvings and treasures that were typically associated with royal burials. Some have even suggested that Cyrus's tomb was intentionally constructed in such a way as to remain hidden from view, perhaps in an effort to avoid looting, or to ensure that the tomb's true significance would remain a mystery for future generations. But Cyrus is not the only king whose tomb is located in the valley. Other tombs have been identified as those of Darius I, Xerxes III, and other prominent Persian rulers. These tombs are equally sparse, and like the tomb of Cyrus, they appear to be deliberately designed to avoid drawing attention. The simple facades and minimalist inscriptions offer little information about the rulers buried inside, leaving historians and archaeologists to speculate about their true purpose and meaning. Why, in an empire known for its wealth and splendor, would the Persians choose to bury their kings in such modest tombs? Some scholars have proposed that the choice of such understated tombs reflects the Persian kings' desire for humility or their belief in the impermanence of life and power. Perhaps the tombs were designed to emphasize the ephemeral nature of kingship and the transitory nature of earthly wealth. The Persians, after all, were known for their profound sense of justice and wisdom, and it's possible that their approach to death reflected a different philosophical outlook than the more extravagant burial practices seen in other ancient cultures. Yet, there are also those who believe that the simplicity of the tombs may have been a deliberate ruse, a way to mislead would-be tomb robbers and keep the true treasures of the Persian kings hidden. The idea of a hidden treasure is tantalizing, especially given the riches that would have accompanied a king of such vast power. Some have suggested that the real treasure of the Persian kings may not be buried in the tombs themselves, but in the surrounding landscape, waiting to be uncovered, hidden in the depths of the valley, or even beneath the layers of time and earth. There are also theories that the tombs may hold secret messages or clues to the true legacy of the Persian Empire. Could the seemingly simple inscriptions on the tombs be a form of coded language, a method of communication meant only for a select few? The idea of hidden messages within royal tombs is not a new one. Throughout history, many ancient cultures have left behind cryptic symbols and inscriptions, some of which remain undeciphered to this day. Could it be that the Persian kings, in their wisdom, left behind clues that would one day reveal the true nature of their empire's power and influence? Another compelling theory centers on the location of the tombs themselves. The Valley of the Kings of Persia is located in a secluded area, far from the reach of most travelers and invaders. This raises the question, why would the tombs of such powerful rulers be placed in such a remote and isolated location? Was it to ensure that the tombs would remain undisturbed, or was there a deeper, more spiritual reason for their placement. Some researchers have suggested that the valley may have held religious significance for the ancient Persians, a sacred site chosen for its connection to the natural world, perhaps tied to ancient astrological beliefs or ritual practices. Could the tombs be positioned in alignment with celestial bodies or geographical features, marking the ruler's connection to the divine? Despite the many theories, the true significance of the Valley of the Kings of Persia remains elusive. While some tombs have been excavated and their contents studied, much of the valley still lies untouched, a sacred and untapped resource for archaeologists and historians alike. The mysterious nature of the tombs, coupled with the profound questions they raise, continues to fascinate and intrigue those who venture into this enigmatic landscape. The tombs of the Persian kings are not just relics of an ancient empire, they are puzzles waiting to be solved. The simplicity of the tombs hides a deeper mystery, one that may yet be uncovered by those willing to venture into the depths of history. What secrets do these tombs hold, and what treasures remain hidden beneath the earth? The answers, it seems, may still be out there, buried in the hidden valley, waiting for the next chapter in the mystery of Persia's lost kings to be written. Nestled in the arid landscapes of northern Mesopotamia, in what is now modern-day Syria, lies the ancient city of Brak, a once thriving urban center that holds some of the oldest and most perplexing secrets of ancient civilizations. Among the many discoveries made in this sprawling archaeological site, one stands out: the mysterious Eye Temple, a structure that has baffled scholars and archaeologists for decades. At first glance, the Eye Temple may seem like another ordinary ruin, yet its name alone invokes images of ancient power, ritualistic significance, and a connection to something far more profound than what meets the eye. Located at the heart of Brak, this temple is distinguished by a unique feature: a collection of large stone eyes found within its confines, some of which are thought to have been part of figurines or statues of unknown deities. The eyes are not merely decorative, they are incredibly detailed, crafted with care and attention to detail, suggesting they held significant spiritual or symbolic value. The origins of Brak itself date back to the 6th millennium BCE, making it one of the oldest known cities in the world. This ancient site flourished during the early Bronze Age and played a crucial role in the development of trade and culture in the region. However, it is the Eye Temple that remains one of its greatest enigmas. What were these eyes meant to represent? And why were they so prominently featured in the temple's design? The eyes found at the site are believed to have been part of a larger religious or cultic practice. Some scholars speculate that they may have been dedicated to a specific deity or a series of gods connected to the concept of vision, a symbolic representation of sight, insight, or even divine watchfulness. Could these eyes have been a form of divine protection or a way to communicate with gods, ensuring that the city and its inhabitants were always under the watchful gaze of a higher power? Or was the act of seeing viewed as a sacred ritual, a way to connect with the divine through the physical act of sight itself? Adding to the mystery, the size and arrangement of these eyes are not the only peculiarities associated with the temple. The structure of the Eye Temple itself is unusual. It does not conform to typical architectural practices seen in other ancient temples of the region. Most temples of the time followed a more standardized layout, with clear distinctions between the outer and inner sanctuaries, but the Eye Temple seems to blend these spaces in a way that defies easy explanation. What was its true purpose? Was it an astronomical observatory, a ritual space, or something else entirely? The absence of definitive answers only deepens the intrigue surrounding this ancient site. One theory, though unproven, suggests that the Eye Temple may have been connected to early forms of scrying or divination. The use of eyes in many ancient cultures as a tool for seeing into the future or interpreting omens is well documented, and it is possible that the people of Brak engaged in similar practices. The large eyes could have served as symbols of divine sight, used in rituals where individuals would look into them, seeking guidance from the gods. In this context, the eyes would not merely be representations of the divine, but portals, windows into realms unseen, a way to channel the will and wisdom of gods into the mortal world. Equally fascinating is the possibility that the eyes were not just symbolic but held a deeper, more personal significance. Could they have represented the ancient practice of ancestor worship? The eyes may have been intended to honor the departed, to ensure their continued presence and protection over the living. In this view, the eyes would serve as conduits for the spirits of ancestors, watching over the city and its people. Perhaps the temple itself was a place of communication between the living and the dead, where individuals could seek counsel or favor from their ancestors through the power of sight. Beyond these religious or ritualistic interpretations, some scholars suggest that the Eye Temple was part of a larger, more complex political structure, an instrument used by the city's rulers to maintain control over the population. Ancient Mesopotamian rulers often claimed divine favor and descended from gods, so the eyes may have been used to reinforce the idea that the rulers themselves were always watched by the gods. If this were the case, the temple's purpose would have been twofold: not only a space for religious rituals, but also a tool of statecraft, reminding the people that their rulers were the divine agents of the god's will. Yet, as with most ancient mysteries, there is no definitive evidence to support any of these theories, and the true purpose of the Eye Temple remains elusive. The mysterious eyes may have been the product of a once flourishing civilization whose beliefs and rituals are lost to time. What remains clear is that these eyes, carved in stone, stand as silent witnesses to a long-forgotten world, a world whose people sought to connect with something far beyond themselves. But the mystery doesn't end with the temple itself. As excavations continue, the possibility remains that further discoveries will reveal new insights into the purpose and significance of these enigmatic eyes. Could there be other hidden chambers, more eyes yet to be uncovered, or inscriptions that could unlock the secrets of this ancient site? Or perhaps the truth about the Eye Temple lies beyond the physical realm, something that cannot be fully understood by archaeology alone, but instead requires a deeper connection with the spiritual world that the people of Brak once inhabited. In the end, the Eye Temple of Brak may be a symbol not only of ancient mystery, but of the persistence of the unknown in human history. It is a reminder that there are still places, even today, where the past speaks to us in symbols and riddles that remain beyond our comprehension. As we gaze into the eyes of the past, we are left to wonder, what do they truly see? And what might still be hidden from our view, waiting for us to uncover? In the rugged terrain of northern Syria, nestled among the remnants of ancient cities and forgotten ruins, lies the mysterious temple of Dara, a place that to this day evokes both awe and perplexity. This ancient site is often overshadowed by its more famous counterparts in the region, yet it holds secrets that have puzzled archaeologists and historians for decades. What makes Dara truly remarkable isn't merely its age or its religious significance, but the enigmatic footprints, massive impressions carved into the stone floors of the temple that seem to belong to a being far larger than any human. The Dara temple sits in the Afrin Valley, far from the sprawling ancient cities of Mesopotamia. Built in the 1st millennium BCE, this structure is thought to have been a place of worship for the Arameans, a Semitic people who flourished in the region during the Iron Age. However, despite its modest location, the temple's architectural features suggest that it was a site of significant religious importance. The structure of the temple itself is an impressive feat of ancient engineering. It follows a design similar to that of the great Syrian temples, with a long rectangular layout and a series of massive stone columns that once supported a grand roof. Inside the temple, the walls are adorned with carvings and reliefs, depicting scenes of ancient rituals, gods, and mythical creatures. Yet, it is the giant footprints found within the temple's central hall that remain its most captivating feature, and one of the most baffling mysteries of ancient architecture. These footprints, which are etched into the stone floor, are far larger than any human feet could possibly be. The largest of these impressions measures over 1.5 meters in length, suggesting that whoever or whatever left them would have been an immense, superhuman figure. Archaeologists have not only found multiple sets of footprints in the stone flooring, but also signs that these footprints lead toward the temple's inner sanctum, as though a being of extraordinary size had once walked there, perhaps leaving its mark for reasons that are not immediately clear. At first glance, the footprints seem like something straight out of a legend, possibly tied to ancient stories of gods or giants. According to local folklore, the area surrounding Dara was once inhabited by mythical beings that were believed to have had tremendous size and strength, capable of feats far beyond human capabilities. Could the footprints at Dara be remnants of such a myth? Was this temple perhaps dedicated to giants or deities who were believed to walk the earth in ancient times? And if so, who were these gods, and why were their immense footprints preserved in stone? Mainstream scholars and archaeologists, however, have a more practical explanation. Many believe the footprints were created as part of the temple's design, possibly as a symbolic representation of the power of the gods or the divine. The idea that the gods walked the earth was a common theme in many ancient cultures, and it is not surprising that the Arameans might have used giant footprints to visually demonstrate their belief in a divine presence. The footprints, in this view, were not meant to depict literal giants, but rather to emphasize the immensity and greatness of the gods themselves. Yet, the true origins and intent behind the footprints remain elusive. Some scholars suggest that these prints could have been made by ancient ritualists as part of a ceremonial practice. Sacred rites, possibly linked to the worship of gods, may have involved the act of creating these footprints on the stone as part of the temple's consecration, intended to invite the presence of divine beings into the space. The idea that the act of walking, leaving a trace of one's presence, could be a powerful symbol of divine influence is well known in religious iconography, from ancient Egypt to Mesopotamia. Could these footprints have been a symbolic act of making the god's presence known in a physical form? In addition to their symbolic significance, the footprints of Dara have also sparked more speculative theories. Some suggest that the prints could have been the result of an earlier construction technique, where large slabs of stone were carved or cast in such a way that they accidentally formed the appearance of giant footprints. This theory, while intriguing, seems unlikely, given the deliberate placement and precision with which the footprints align. Why, after all, would such an intricate and intentional design exist in the first place if it were not meant to convey something more meaningful? Others propose that the footprints could be remnants of a long-lost culture with a history and technology that is now hidden from our understanding. Could there have been an advanced civilization that predated the Arameans, one that believed in beings of great size and power? Some fringe theories even suggest that the footprints might be connected to extraterrestrial beings, as strange as this idea may seem. Could the ancient inhabitants of Dara have had contact with visitors from beyond the stars? As fascinating as these theories are, there is no definitive proof to support any one of them. The mystery of the giant footprints at Dara remains just that, a mystery. What is certain is that these stone impressions represent more than just an artistic flourish or a curiosity of ancient craftsmanship. They represent a powerful symbol, a link to a time long past when the line between the divine and the earthly might have seemed far more blurred and where the footsteps of gods could have walked among men. There's something particularly haunting about the idea that these footprints, despite being carved in stone, still hold the weight of a long-forgotten belief, one that has evaded our understanding for thousands of years. Whether the footprints are part of a religious ritual, a divine message, or something else entirely, they continue to capture the imagination of anyone who comes across them. Could they be evidence of an ancient truth, one that has yet to be fully understood? Or are they simply a symbolic gesture, a means by which ancient peoples sought to bridge the gap between their world and that of the divine? Only time, and perhaps further excavations, will reveal the answers. For now, the footprints of Dara remain etched in stone, and the story they tell continues to beckon, inviting us to step closer to a past that remains, for the most part, beyond our reach. What remains hidden within the stones? What secrets might these giant footprints still reveal to those who dare to seek their meaning? Chapter. The forgotten metalwork of Marlik, nestled in the rugged highlands of northern Iran, the ancient site of Marlik is an enigmatic treasure trove, an archaeological enigma that continues to baffle scholars and historians. Here, in the shadow of towering mountains and vast stretches of barren land, the remains of a forgotten civilization have emerged from the earth, revealing intricate and meticulously crafted artifacts that hint at a culture of extraordinary skill and knowledge. These artifacts, particularly the metalwork unearthed in Marlik, challenge everything we know about the early development of metallurgy and the artistic traditions of the ancient world. The story of Marlik begins with its remarkable burial mounds, which were discovered in the 1950s by Iranian archaeologist Dr. T.K.J. Karamati. Among these mounds were thousands of small bronze items, some resembling religious objects, while others had more practical or ceremonial purposes. Most striking of all were the metal objects themselves, many made of an alloy far superior to the typical bronze of the ancient world and far more intricate in design. In some of these burial mounds, archaeologists uncovered not just simple tools, but ornamental pieces that seemed almost out of place, too refined, too elaborate for their time. In one of the most well-known finds, a ceremonial cauldron, roughly 40 centimeters in height, was uncovered. It featured beautifully detailed designs of animal and human figures, a striking contrast to the more utilitarian artifacts typically found in similar sites. The cauldron was cast in a remarkably pure bronze, a type of metal known to have been created through a particularly advanced process of smelting, one that wasn't supposed to be available in the region during the time it was made, around the early 1st millennium BCE. But this discovery, while remarkable, is only the beginning of the mystery. For Marlik's metalwork doesn't fit neatly into any historical framework. The use of the highly specialized alloy and the complexity of its crafting raises numerous questions. Who were the people of Marlik? How did they acquire the knowledge and skills to create such sophisticated metal objects? And perhaps most intriguingly, what secrets are hidden within the items themselves, still waiting to be revealed? The mainstream explanation suggests that the people of Marlik were part of the broader Iranian civilization, contemporaneous with the Elamites and other ancient cultures of the region. Historians generally believe that the skillful artisans of Marlik were influenced by the advanced metalworking traditions of the Mesopotamians. They speculate that these craftsmen had mastered the art of bronze casting, making use of methods passed down over generations. Yet, as impressive as this explanation is, it doesn't quite account for the true uniqueness of Marlik's metalwork. After all, the cauldrons and objects found at the site don't resemble those of any known Mesopotamian cultures. The style is wholly unique, as though the artists had evolved their own approach to metalwork, one that we still don't fully understand. This gap in understanding only deepens when we consider the alloy used in the metal objects of Marlik. Early metalworking civilizations typically used bronze, a combination of copper and tin, but the metal found at Marlik was distinctively different. The alloy showed traces of a rare combination of elements, including arsenic, an addition that would have required advanced metallurgical knowledge to achieve. While the use of arsenic in bronze was known in some ancient cultures, it was exceedingly rare, and its application in the manner seen in Marlik is a source of ongoing mystery. Was it an accidental discovery, or did the people of Marlik possess metallurgical knowledge far beyond their time? And if so, where did this knowledge come from? Some scholars suggest that the advanced techniques employed in the Marlik metalwork might have been the result of contact with neighboring civilizations, perhaps even the ancient Indus Valley or Mesopotamia. But others speculate that this advanced knowledge could have been independent, originating with the Marlik people themselves, pointing to a lost tradition of metallurgy that was forgotten over the centuries. As we peer deeper into the intricacies of these metal objects, the mysteries continue to multiply. One of the most fascinating discoveries was a set of bronze plaques, each adorned with symbols and depictions that have never been definitively translated. These intricate designs feature figures that appear to be both human and animal, interwoven with geometric patterns that hint at a deeper meaning, one we can only begin to grasp. Some experts believe these figures might represent deities or mythological creatures, while others suggest they could be representations of astronomical phenomena, pointing to the possibility that the Marlik people had a sophisticated understanding of the heavens. Yet, without a written language to accompany these symbols, the meaning behind the plaques remains elusive, lost to time. It's also worth noting that the Marlik culture seems to have disappeared without a trace. There are no known records or inscriptions left behind by the people who once inhabited the region. The burial mounds themselves offer no clear answers as to why this civilization faded into obscurity. While it's possible that they were absorbed into neighboring cultures, the sudden and complete disappearance of such an advanced society raises unsettling questions. Did they leave behind a legacy too advanced for their time, one that was lost as quickly as it had been created? Or were their secrets simply buried with them, waiting for future generations to unearth and ponder? Interestingly, there are some who speculate that the metalwork of Marlik was not just a product of advanced craftsmanship, but may have served a mystical or ritualistic purpose. The sheer complexity of the designs and the materials used suggests that the objects might not have been ordinary tools or decorative items. Perhaps they were created to serve as offerings to the gods, or as symbols of power, or even as instruments of divine communication. There are whispers among fringe theorists that the objects of Marlik may have held a deeper metaphysical significance, serving as conduits for unknown energies or forces. This idea is, of course, purely speculative, but it raises an intriguing possibility that the metal objects of Marlik were more than just artifacts. They were perhaps a key to unlocking ancient mysteries. Despite all the research and the many questions posed by the mysterious artifacts of Marlik, the ultimate answers remain elusive. Was it the influence of distant civilizations that propelled the metalworkers of Marlik to their extraordinary achievements? Or was it the ingenuity of a long-lost culture, perhaps lost to history forever, that developed these technologies independently? How did they create such unique alloys and complex designs without the tools and knowledge we take for granted today? Perhaps one of the most thought-provoking aspects of the Marlik mystery is the fact that we may never know the full truth behind these objects. What we can say for certain is that the artifacts of Marlik represent a lost chapter in the history of metallurgy, one that has yet to be fully understood. Whether the result of extraordinary craftsmanship or divine inspiration, the forgotten metalwork of Marlik stands as a testament to the ingenuity of an ancient civilization that once thrived in the shadows of the Iranian mountains. As with so many ancient mysteries, the objects of Marlik raise more questions than they answer, leaving us to wonder, what else might remain hidden beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to reveal its secrets? The people of Marlik, their methods, and their beliefs may be lost to time, but their creations remain, silent, enduring, and mysterious. And perhaps, in their intricate forms and materials, they still hold the key to mysteries we have yet to even imagine.